Everybody wants to be a freelancer, don't they? Make money on the side, work for yourself, call your own shots, be your own boss. Cool stuff, Kurt. I mean, almost everybody wants to do
It's
that.
a great idea.
Yeah. I'm gonna lead with something which is results. Now $50,000 isn't a lot of money if you think about like an annual salary. I mean, the average salary for a Power Apps developer working as an employee is 120,000. And that's an average, and some make below that, some make more than that, some make double that, or even more. And so I just wanted to show you. Now, this isn't something I photoshopped, and I can prove it to you a very easy way here. Let me see if I can bring up a browser. When somebody shows me something, I'm a little skeptical.
These days you got to know, is that what's that all about, right?
Now, if you click on Fiverr/earnings, what happens? It's going to bring up your Fiverr account. That's what's going to happen. Okay. And there, of course, I do have business expenses. I hire people to like create icons for me, make my apps look, all nice and beautiful. So I do have expenses that I gladly pay. And
now, Darren, are those payouts that are just within, because that expense isn't very high. Is that just expenses that you spent on Fiverr, like for Fiverr work?
Yeah, hiring other Fiverr professionals.
Okay. So okay. So that's skewed just a little bit as far as expenses. There's a lot of other expenses involved that aren't Fiverr, right? Yeah.
That's true. It's true. So expenses, I mean, you could have, I go a little crazy with, maybe creating a little song or a jingle like I did for Shane Young, and I've got another one for a rebrand. Good morning, Ellie.
Morning, Ellie.
And
I just look at typically when you're looking at how much money somebody makes in a business, you look about 20% of that's supposed to be expenses. So then you look at that, you're like, well, I want to do 20%. So that can't be right, So.
Okay. So let's round this to 50. So you said 20%. So that would be what, 10,000 of that. So
about 10,000.
Oh yeah, that's way below that. That's pretty cool. All right.
Yeah.
I like that.
But that's probably not accurate because that's just your Fiverr expenses. Those are just the expenses from Fiverr. That's not paying your utility bills. And
that's true. My biggest expense is Kurt, this guy that works for me. Yeah. Of course I don't pay him enough, but I pay him as much as I can.
Right. That's why he keeps his expenses down below 20%.
Good deal. Hey, you led a workshop yesterday that was amazing.
Man, thank you.
I just got to, of course, I've already told you that, but
thank you for that.
There are some in the chat and some in the private chat here as a panelist that could attest to that. But you covered collections.
Boy, did we cover collections, right?
Oh,
I think everybody can know that there was a lot we covered collections.
We did. Yeah. Well, you covered collections. I was sitting there just going to follow along. And boy, you went to a place at the end, made my brain go bonkers. I had to show you my code. Like, dude, this code isn't working. Help me figure this out. I think I had two additional ending parentheses. That's not a word. I struggled with that word.
I remember at the end, we had 30 minutes and I said, well, can I get this done in 30 minutes? Well, okay. And I took that Jim Carrey deep breath and I just took off. Yeah.
Like a glove.
And everybody had high blood pressure. Mark had high blood pressure. You had high blood pressure. It's funny.
You guys ever notice my ears go red? Like really red, redder than what they are right now.
Yeah. There's two times when his ears go red. It's either high blood pressure or if somebody says that what Kurt did was elegant. If he hears that, ears go red. Yeah. So anyway, that was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun. We need to do that again.
Yeah. Well, so this next Friday, we do workshops on Friday afternoons, 1 p.m. EST. And this upcoming workshop is about freelancing. So if you like this content here, guys, you're definitely going to want to sign up for that. And so we'll talk more about that at the end. Right now, I just want to provide you guys value and just talk about it in general. In the workshop, we're going to, go to like places like Fiverr and Upwork and create our accounts. I'll show you all my tips and tricks of how to sort of promote yourself on the platforms. I've got a lot to say. I could probably talk 4 hours on top of what I talk about here today. These are just like the basics that I would want to mention, So what is freelancing? Well, if you're a freelancer, you're not working as an employee of an organization for an employer. Okay. Now there's a little bit of blurry lines. I was like an employee, but then I started doing contracting, like a 1099 contractor. I guess 1099 is an IRS form here in the United States. So you say 1099, people sort of know what you're talking about. So 1099 contractor, and then you have full blown freelancing. And then I guess maybe a fourth level where you're doing freelancing and you can't handle all the work. So you start hiring people to help you out. And in that way you can scale, because you only have so much time to sell.
Right. That's the old franchising. That's when you start franchising yourself a little bit.
Yeah. So you work for clients as needed. Hopefully it's consistent. Hopefully somebody's got like a really big project. And guys, I'm going to tell you this at the forefront. The bigger the organization, the better the money is. And the bigger the organizations, they typically have bigger, longer projects. And also, bigger the organization, the more policies and procedures and meetings to figure out when our next meeting is. And it can sort of weigh heavy on your soul.
Also, the more personalities you have too, that you got to deal with, right?
Yeah.
There's just a lot going on with that. We could talk about that a lot.
But the smaller the organization, there's still personalities there, but the guy in charge, now, of course, this doesn't apply to me. Okay. I'm just putting that out there.
Never
All the small organizations I've ever worked for, the owner, like we're talking like maybe 10 people or less. The owner is like, he is the big, or he or she is the big personality that you got to deal with. And then everybody else is just trying to suck up to that person, So there's a little bit of drama there. My favorite type of organization to work for is a medium-sized organization. You get the sort of like the best of both worlds in my opinion. And Ellie says meetings, LOL. Hey guys, have you ever been to a meeting that should have just been an email? I know.
Almost all of them. Almost all of them at the corporate level should have just been an email. Almost all of them.
Yeah.
They could have been one meeting every 10 days,
Yeah. I would say freelancing isn't for the faint of heart. Now, why do you think that is, Kurt?
Because the faint of heart might come apart there. Yeah.
The what?
Because the faint of heart might come apart. That's why it's not.
That's true.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. There's some security in being an employee for an organization. You're like a permanent employee. I mean, unless you're there for some seasonal work, helping some retail stores with Christmas, or working at a what's that Halloween place that opens up? Spirit that, and they're only open for like a month or two. They sell stuff for Halloween. But generally you get a job working as an employee. You sort of feel like, okay, this is like unless I mess something up or do something bad, I'm sort of here permanently as long as I want to be, as long as that company's in business, you get that paycheck either. I think ways every week, but you get consistent paychecks, right?
I just want to talk about that for just a second. I don't know if it's a digression or not, but it's just a sign of the times, I think, too, because I remember being a little boy. Believe it or not, I was a little boy at one point. I mean, it's hard, but I remember my parents and my grandparents, everybody, it was all about having a job. They all worked for 20, 30 years in this factory or this production place or this store or whatever it was that they worked at. They would work. Their career was one career, and that was all they did for all their whole life. And that's the way it was. And then when I come up, it wasn't so much, somebody would have changed careers maybe once in their life. Now the word career is almost not even in existence anymore. We don't even know if career is really what it is anymore. Because you don't live in the same place for as long. You don't work in the same place. You don't do the same type of thing. I'm seeing 50 and 60-year-olds going to school to try to learn to do something new because their old career is gone. So just the landscape just keeps changing so fast now. I don't know how to explain that, but
absolutely right.
So for me, it was always about job security for me. I wanted to be that dude that was going to be working somewhere until I was 75 years old, and it just wasn't going to happen. So for me, job security was a big deal. So working for somebody else scares me now because I never know when it's going to happen because I don't have control over it. So now it seems like if you know a trade, like if you're a plumber, an electrician, a mechanic, a computer programmer, you have a trade now, and you can take that trade anywhere now. That's where your security is at now. So now you got control over that. So now when you talk about freelancing, I have control over the faucet of the work coming in, the work going out. Now that's job security, in my opinion, because now if things fall apart, it's your fault. It's just your fault now. You only yourself to blame.
Yeah.
And I love that because I don't like other people messing up my stuff, because if I mess up my stuff, at least I can say I did that. But if somebody else did it, shame on me because I let them do it,
Yeah.
So
some people like control, Kurt. Some people like control.
Yeah. And MD over here says change is constant, embrace it. You're right. It was even that way for my folks, 75,000 years ago. It was even that way for them too. There was change, but the change was different. I don't know how to explain it, but there was more consistency within life. I think at that point, I think life moved a little slower. And I don't want to wax. Go ahead.
The internet started to change things, but man, with everybody having a smartphone,
I think that's
really changed things.
I think technology just changed the whole way we even think nowadays. I mean, I remember being on a mass transit bus up there in Rockford, Illinois one day, and I was the only one that didn't have a phone out. I mean, I was watching everybody. I mean, the bus was packed, and everybody. Of course, I'm old school, so when you've always
been a little different, Kurt.
Always have been.
That in there. But you're elegant.
I don't have my phone out when I'm eating lunch or dinner. I'm that old school. I don't have my phone out. Right. But I was watching this, and everybody we were all together. Everybody was together. We were all together in this bus, but nobody was talking. Nobody was saying a word. Everybody was on their phone. And it's just amazing. The technology has changed the way we interact with each other and everything. So with that, change is coming so much faster now, and I don't like change. I've never liked change. I don't know too many people that really do like change. But so when he says, embrace it, change is constant, embrace it. He's so right about that. And for me anyway, it's one of the hardest things for me to do. Screen fatigue, perhaps. Yeah.
In today's world with the technology, the internet, the smart devices, smartphones, you really can work from anywhere in the world. I mean, how that has really changed the landscape. That opens your freelance business. If you're watching this video, maybe you're interested in building a freelance business, opens you up to the whole world.
Yeah. Yeah. I guess when I was talking about that, I think the thing about freelancing that was so big for me was the ability that I could control some of that stuff, that I'm the one that's responsible now. It's taking that out of the hands of others,
I like that. Yeah. Having your own determination over your life and things that matter, your time, your money, your attention, all that type of good stuff. Generally as a contractor or freelancer, you're paid per job, which can be difficult to get used to if you're used to employment as an employee, or you get paid per hour. Okay. Now, even if you're paid per hour, if you're used to being an employee and having benefits, well, you're going to have to find your own health insurance. Well, the US is different than a lot of other countries. I believe at least it's different than Canada. So there's these things that you're going to have to set aside. When we get down to the how to handle finances, I'm going to talk a little bit more about that, all the things that I've had to learn. And Kurt, I think you got quite a few things to say about that as well that you've probably learned. So these are generally the two ways, and there's pros and cons to each. Okay. So let's say I'm going to say per job. Okay, I'm very used to this on Fiverr. Generally, that's the work that you're going to get on Fiverr. And the two platforms, and we're going to get to all the different freelancing platforms here in a little bit, as you see right here. Okay. But the two that I'm going to recommend is Fiverr and Upwork. Okay. And the, I'll say per hour here. Okay. So Fiverr is more for per job and Upwork is more for per hour. Now that's not an absolute rule. You know, you can tell somebody on Fiverr, hey, I need 50 or $100 an hour, you know, and you can give them an estimate. I think it'll take me 10 hours, but it might take me 12, you know. Some of the screens and the way that you place orders isn't really set up for that. But they are. I've already seen some changes in Fiverr where they're trying to make that more of an option. But if you never want to work per job, I would still steer you towards an hour like on Upwork. But the thing is, per job, this becomes very lucrative if you have a lot of things that you can slap into place and not have to write it from scratch.
That's right.
You know, turn my jumpstart kit.
Yeah. When you start using templates, then and now you can increase your production, right? So you're basically doing piecework now. And it's all about cranking out the production now.
Yeah. I'm almost known as the service desk ticketing system guy, writing those systems and Power Apps. You know, I got a whole course on that. And somebody says they need a ticketing system. I'm like, okay, well, here's a system that I've done before. How close does that meet your needs? You know, and they're going to end up paying for stuff I've done months or years ago. Now I need to customize it for them, but this can become very lucrative. You know, you might only end up spending 10 hours to customize something you already had, customize it for them, but you're going to be paying as if you had worked 50 hours writing it from scratch. You know,
that's actually where the rapid application development kind of comes in too. When you've got a tool like back in the 90s, I used to be a freelancer back in the 90s, and I was it was Visual Basic. Before that, I was a C++. Well, they didn't have C#, but I was a C++ programmer, and you know, the world knew that programming took a long time. The world knew that, you know, C++ was hard, right? So, but they didn't know about Visual Basic yet. And they said, hey, you know, I need a program wrote. Okay, well, it's going to cost, you know, I don't know, $5,000 to get this job done. You know, well, if you're doing that in C++, you guys know it's going to take a while to get that done, right? But in Visual Basic, I could get it done in less than a week. You know, I could have the whole thing done in less than a week. They didn't know that. And as long as I made that program run as efficient and as slick as a C++ program, they didn't care. Snuffy Smith, who owns the business, he doesn't care what language you wrote the damn thing in. He just wants it done, you know? So yeah, you know, it's just about trying to get done. And I could just increase my income and my production by 80% by using rapid application development. Now, take that to today's standards. You have C# out there, which is a pretty good development tool. Not nearly as long as C++ was to work in it. Mm-hmm. But now you got the Power Platform. Oh my, you can really increase your productivity with that. So the per job really helps, especially if you get to pick the tool.
Yeah. You know? I put in here, it's very easy to lose your shirt. Pretty much they could tell you what they want. And they're like, when people message you on Fiverr, man, they're looking for two things. How much are you going to charge me? And how long is it going to take you to do the job? Hopefully they're flexible on one of those two things. If they're not flexible on either of those, they're going to pay a lot of money, especially if you already have projects on your plate that if they really want it done quick, then you're going to have to maybe drop or put other projects on the back burner or deprioritize them. But I say it's very easy to lose your shirt because you could say, oh, that will take me, you know, about a week. Yeah, a week. And I just need to $1,000 for that. And in your mind, let's say you price yourself $100 an hour. It's going to take me 10 hours, but I'm going to be working like 2 hours Monday through Friday, and then it'll be done on the weekend and stuff. Guys, projects always change. More requirements, little subtle requirements come up. Like somebody approaches me and it's like, hey, we need an app, and they may or may not mention that they're from Canada. What language do they speak up in Canada, guys?
Hey,
English and French. So if you've done business with people up in Canada, or you lived up in Canada, or know much about Canada, you'll know that you will probably need something that will switch between English and French. So maybe clarify that. But if they say, hey, yeah, this is going to be used by Canadians, okay, they might expect you to know. There's a lot of weird expectations. So this can be very dangerous. Okay. So you give it to them, it's all in English, and they're like, hey, where's the French version of the screen? And you're like, oh, what? And they're like, I told you this is Canadian. You realize we speak French up here too, right? And then if you didn't know that, I don't know, you start to feel like maybe you're like an imposter, like there was something you should have known. There's all kinds of weird things like that. You know what I mean?
So Darren, we just finished doing a video on a lot of this stuff that you're talking about here for the accelerator students, right? We're talking about when you go into meetings, when you're trying to gather requirements, when you're trying to understand a project. This is where you lose your shirt. This is where you lose your shirt. And I really feel like we did a pretty good job doing that video. If talking about our experiences about how we lost our shirt and how we adjusted from that, and how now to be careful of that, what to be careful of, the pitfalls. I think we did a pretty good job with that. And you really got to get good at that in these meetings. You really got to get, and you're going to get good one way or another. You're either going to learn from some experts on it and understand it. Some of you guys are going to watch those videos and still have to learn on your own, but you're either going to learn from that, or you're going to go in there and you're going to get burned a couple times. And,
you'll definitely learn from the burn.
Now Andy says best to define scope of work in the beginning. And that's exactly right.
Oh yeah.
But there's an art to that. Oftentimes CEOs, bosses, stakeholders, they don't know what they want. They think they know what they want, but they really don't. And then when you go in there and you start working on the stuff and they start seeing your code, or not your code, but your screens and your app and the action of it, then it wakes them up a little bit and says, oh, that's what I really want. Oh, I needed to do this and this and this and this and this. Well, none of that is what we talked about in the beginning. Now your program starts from being this small thing to this huge behemoth. And they don't want to pay extra for that. No, I want my program to do that.
Once you
got hurt before,
Kurt, once you mention a price, they will not pay a penny more.
Yeah, you're locked in.
Look, you could literally say, hey, let me look at all these documents that you send me, and I'll give you more of a firm estimate. But from what you've told me so far, I can imagine it being more than $3,000.
Yeah,
you will not be able to charge them a penny more than $3,000.
Right. So you got to get really good at conveying how, like Ellie just said, yes, it always grows. So scope creep is always going to happen in every project, even in the best of them. Scope creep is going to happen. We call that scope creep when your program starts growing, right? You have the scope of something that my program is going to do exactly this. And then they say, I want that program to do this, and then this, and then it's so big, right? And it constantly goes. So even in the best of worlds, scope creep is going to happen. That's just because your program is such a good program that it's waking up a lot of imaginations. Good work always equals more good work. That's the rule. But you've got to understand, we have to increase the scope of cost as well as the scope of work. It needs to grow in proportion, right?
Yeah.
And so much of that is in the politics. So much of that is in the way you can communicate with each other. And also you've got to be cunning. You have to be cunning in this world as a freelancer. You have to be sharp as a serpent, man. You You've got to be, because these people they don't care about you. They want to get their project done, and they want it for free. So
Yeah.
you've got to be slick, because they're going to be slick. They're going to be slick on you. They're going to be, so. But I'm not saying I'm saying that you got to be sharp, but also be kind too, right? Be kind, because that always pays dividends.
Yeah. One of the books I read, I really like, one of the authors said, be wise as serpents and harmless as doves.
Mhm.
I've always liked that. And I don't ascribe or prescribe. I don't know what the right word for that is, but I don't condone deceit or lying in any way.
No.
But there's a little bit of sales. There's some skills in here, some soft skills you really need to develop, or you're going to, if you're committed to being a freelancer, that you didn't have to do as an employee.
Yeah, right. When you're being sharp, when somebody's throwing something at you, and you know that it's just going to hurt you in the end, you got to find a way to tell them no, but yet keep them engaged, right? You got to tell them, okay, we're not going to do it exactly that way. I know what you're on. I know what you're doing to me, but we're not going to do that. We're going to do this. So when you're sharp, you got to be able to direct that communication that way, right? And if you've got to slap them in the face, make sure you don't slap them in the face, so they don't know it until they're driving down the road 20 minutes later after the conversation. They say, was he saying that to me? What kind of,
Have you ever done that to me, Kurt?
See, I shouldn't be talking about this, because now Darren's in his position as kind of, as I say, kind of like being my boss, but it's funny, because now he's thinking, oh, is he doing that to me right now?
I just get smacked in the face and not know it. What I actually remember this when I worked with you. You would say something like that. It's like, wow. I'm like, all these curt sayings, and there's some wisdom in a lot of these things that you've picked up over time.
Yeah.
So yeah, very easy to lose your shirt. And I'm going to put in danger over here, and I'm going to talk more about the dangers of freelancing, and it can really hurt you bad. So the thing that you need to remember, if you're going to go per job, which is the default on Fiverr, is you cannot give an estimate. Do not give any potential client any estimate whatsoever on time or cost, unless you have, I'm gonna bring it back up. I'm gonna go here. There's like 7 stages. It depends on how you break it up, really. The SDLC, the software development lifecycle process. The initiation is the customer reaching out to you. Okay. And there's some beginning information, like, hey, tell me more about the project you need. And they'll start just throwing all kinds of stuff, because they haven't thought through, they haven't planned it. They don't know how to plan it. They don't know the first thing about software development. All they know is that it's easy and it's simple. I just need this. And the more questions you ask, well, yeah, it does need to send out a notification. Okay. So you need a workflow? Well, yeah, but it's not a big, but the more questions you ask, the more information you get. You're sort of covering your butt and sort of sidestepping a lot of dangers and disasters later on. But you cannot estimate unless you've gathered the requirements, you've identified so many things, and people, hey, just ballpark. A lot of times what I'll say, like, listen to me. You tell me what your timelines are and your budget. And a lot of times they won't want to do that. It's like, okay, well, then I've got to do a lot of analysis and a lot of gathering requirements here. That might take 10 hours. Would you mind paying me for 10 hours to be able to get to a point where I can give you an estimate? Or you can just tell me what your budget is. And then I could say, oh, well, I could do a small app that's got 3 screens and it writes to a single table, or whatever it is. If they say they only got $50, I typically don't do jobs under 1,000. But you got to come up with your own rules and the ways that you like to do business.
But that actually, I wish you would keep that up there for just a little bit.
Sure.
You could go back to that for just a second.
Yeah.
You could actually make it a business. Your freelance business could be developing how much does it cost to do certain projects. When people have requests for quotes, you could actually do a feasibility study and say, okay, this is what it's going to cost you to do this program. This based on this study here. In other words, you gather all this information, you try to compute how much statistically how fast does it take to do a screen or whatever. You can actually go through there and make it a science to develop the cost for this project. And then you can deliver that to this. And if the corporation or business is reputable, they'll probably pay that. Because think about it. Yeah. I'm going to give somebody $5,000 to do a study on how much is it going to cost me to do this program, because it might save me $10,000, $15,000 in the long run. If this is going to be a $40,000 plus job, paying somebody $5,000 to make sure that I've got how much is this really going to cost me, that's going to be a big deal. Now think about it. Now, Kurt and Darren had their freelance company, and we said, "Hey, Snuffy Smith, the business owner, we're gonna charge you $5,000, and we're gonna take 6 weeks, and we're gonna study this thing like the back of our hand, and we're gonna tell you how much is this gonna cost." Now you've got a request right here. This saying we need this much money. Now you can turn us down. You don't have to give us the job. You paid for the study, and we actually got paid to study. But now you can say, okay, but I don't want you doing the work. I got somebody else over here that's going to do it for a little bit cheaper, maybe. But you're going to know if you're that company owner, you're going to have all that information, and you're going to be so much smarter now. So now when that company comes out here and tries to lowball us, you're going to know as the company owner, this is what it's really going to cost. This is what it's going to take. So.
Yeah. In this planning design phase, you do have deliverables, as you see here on the screen. It's one of the last lessons here.
Yeah.
By the end of the planning design phase, you will need documentation, ERD diagrams, a listing of all the features, the screens, the workflows, the wireframes, user stories, if I didn't mention that. I mean, there's all kinds of stuff, and you want it to be really defined. And what I tell people, let's say on Fiverr, they've got a big project. I'm like, I can't, I've got to spend a lot of time with you and getting the information. Then I need to analyze it, and I need a plan and do all this. And then I could give you the estimate. I said, so I don't do that for free, but when I'm done, I'm going to give you very thorough documentation along with the estimate. If you don't like my time and cost estimate, well, you can take that same document that I gave you that describes exactly what you need and what you've asked for, and you can give that out to dozens and dozens of other developers, or post it online and get all kinds of people,
Yeah.
But
so the reason why I wanted you to go back to this table of contents that you got right here, this planning and design and the initiation phase, these conversations that we have in here, these videos that you make, this is man, let me tell you something. This is critical to go in here knowing this stuff. There's a lot of good information in every one of those sections right there. That the politics and resistance, talking about your stakeholders and users, the implementation, going into these meetings, asking the right questions, and building your confidence, being the adult in the room during these meetings, going in there, because think about it. We're having this meeting about a program that they want you to write. Okay. So who's in charge of this meeting? Is it somebody who doesn't know what the program needs to do? Okay. They definitely have the purse strings, so they could be in charge, but they need you. See, we mix up who's the customer in all of these situations. We think about stores. We think about a store owner. We go in as a customer, the store owner, they got a bill of goods to sell. We go into a hospital setting. The customer is different. We think the patient is the customer, but no, it's the doctor, because the patient has to be there, right? The patient's going in for surgery. They've got to be there. The doctor doesn't have to do the operation. No, the doctor is the customer. So we think we get this mixed up here. The doctor, we're trying to, and so we have to, like, that's how come certain areas have a hard time getting really good doctors, because they don't have a lot to offer them. If I'm up here in Illinois, in the salt and the snow, and I'm a doctor, I better be getting paid a lot more money than the doctor down in Florida who's out there golfing in the middle of winter. You know what I mean? It's hanging out on the beach. Doctors can doctor anywhere. So the doctor is the customer. Same thing with the programmer here. They need a program wrote. Those guys need this program wrote. So I'm a programmer. I don't need to write this program for you, but you need a program wrote. I'm going to do it. So the negotiation is you've always got to define who is the customer in that moment. And oftentimes when you go into these meetings, that's where it gets defined. And you need to be able to let them know, I'm the surgeon here, guys. I'm the surgeon. Your company is on life support right now. You need me.
Hopefully you say that with some amount of humility, right?
I mean, when you get confidence, when you know what you're doing, it's hard to be humble. So sometimes,
listen, I'm the most humble person. You're humble too, but not as humble as I am.
Okay.
That's my humility joke.
Sometimes people take humility and confidence and they get them mixed up. Sometimes it's important to go in there and be direct and be factual with these people and say, look, guys, this is the way it needs to be done. You got to go in here and say, okay, these guys say, I want a program to do this and this and this and this. And then but you got to be able to do it artfully. You've got to be able to do that so that people understand. So you've got to let them know that you're you're in control in that meeting, but you're going to do it in a way that where, it's personable. You're not going to be making enemies in the moment. Right.
Yeah. I like a lot of how you frame that, because this goes into another one of your tenets is don't be the average bear.
Nope.
Your reputation, if you've got a really good reputation, I don't like to just strut around like my crap don't stink or anything like that. But yeah, I don't know. I get a little weird when the confidence is like a little plant or a garden. Maybe it needs to be pruned a little bit. You need to have some good confidence, some good self-esteem, but you can have some overgrowth and some ego that's growing a little too much. And
right. Yeah, you can't.
My mind needs to be pruned a little bit.
Yeah, confidence and humility are two different things, and you can't get them mixed up. But it's easy to get them confused. You can let your confidence bite you in the butt by let your ego think you're more than who you are, right? But but as far as going into these meetings, dictating who's dictating who in this, obviously the customer is going to be the stakeholder, that they got their finger on the purse strings, but they don't know what they know. They don't understand. They're not tech. That's why they hired you. So you have to go in there and direct traffic with them on the tech, but you have to do it in such a way that if you're slapping them in the face, because you're not necessarily slapping them in the face, that's a harsh word. But sometimes when you got a stakeholder out there that's trying to go woo, 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 I want you to do woo, 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 and this is the way woo, woo is going to be. Sometimes you got to go slow down. Sometimes you got to say, slow down. You're going to kill yourself. You're falling off a cliff here. You're losing crazy money the way you're thinking. We got to rethink this. Sometimes you've got to slow this thing down, but you got to do it in a way that doesn't hurt people. You got to do it in a way that makes them love you.
I've got a little bit of a story that you can tell more of or not say anything about, but I know that you did some work for a foundry, and you wrote 2 or 3 applications, and one you were trying to save the business owner millions of dollars.
Absolutely.
And trying to talk some sense. And I'm like, listen, you're not tracking out on the floor. You became very familiar with all their processes out on the floor. And you're like, there's money being lost here.
Yeah.
Right. And I'll leave that up to you to say more or not say anything, because that's your story. But yeah, so I know what you mean when you say smack people and that type of thing, because I know you really well. I just don't want people to think that's you get the wrong idea. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because the way it comes out, maybe the first time, that's not what we're about. But Yeah. As a freelancer, you need to come in with more confidence than a room of a dozen employees.
Yeah.
That you got your act together, and there are some things that will be expected of you as a contractor more than an employee, like training yourself on something.
Yeah.
Let's say that they have got Postgres as a database system, and I'm familiar with SQL Server. Well, okay, yeah, and I know I need to do my due diligence and learn Postgres enough to be able to do the project. I'm not going to expect them to pay me to go train myself.
Yep.
You know what I mean? So there's things that you have to handle. There's a little bit of give and take here. Things are a little different as a freelancer. But one of the things, you should have that confidence, because really what they need you to do, you're the expert, you're the contractor, you're the freelancer. You're going to come in beside them, take them by the hand, and act in their best interest, and walk them into the future, into their future, like a Sherpa, if you know what a Sherpa is, or sort of like a guide, so the thing doesn't end up in disaster. And supposedly 80% of software projects end in failure in some form of in one way or the other.
Yeah. So there's a couple things I want to say about what you were just talking about there. Again, going back into these meetings, when it comes to business, it's all about making money, and you are taking somebody's money at some point. You're great. Somebody's money is coming into your hands. And that's what it's really, the bottom line. It's really all about that. We dress it up. We put on suits and dresses, and we look really nice. And we put on our makeup or comb our hair. We get groomed really nice. And we go in there and we're smiling. There's always smiling and saying nice platitudes to each other. But underneath that scene, it's always about, okay, how much money are you going to give me, and how much more work are you going to do for that? There's that communication that's underneath there, right? So there's that cunningness that you have to have while you're doing all that stuff up top of that. I mean, every millionaire, think about all the millionaires out there in the world. They've been taking money. Now, they're not necessarily stealing the money, but it's about an interaction. And who's going to come up above that? What I look for when I go into meetings is, how can we both win? All right. Who wins? First question you got to ask is, who wins during this conversation? If we're having this conversation, is the businessman going to win, or is the programmer going to win? I don't like leaving being the winner and without that person winning. I want both sides to be winning. There was somebody said, was way smarter than me, said, a good compromise is when, I think it was Reagan. I don't know who it was, but somebody said, when it's a good compromise, when both people leave the meeting not getting what they wanted. But when both people leave the meeting and it wasn't exactly what they wanted.
Divorce lawyers say that.
Yeah, but that's true. That's the true sense of compromise, right? Because I come in wanting $1 million. The other guy wants to pay it for $5. So somewhere in between $5 and $1 million is going to be the moment where that's what we're going to agree on. It's all about that negotiation, and it's all about, and some of you guys are watching this. You guys know what I'm talking about. This is just general life stuff, really, right? Life skills. But it's really important just to be able to go in there into these meetings and have some confidence as a programmer, as a freelancer. It's a lot easier when you're working for somebody else and they're in charge of that, and you just kick back and collect money. But there's a reason why that person's got to make the money he makes, because they've got to deal with that,
Yeah, absolutely. So, I do have a request I want to share. Anything helpful out of this, a comment or even a like really helps the channel, and lets people like you know this is good content. Much appreciated. Now, this is good stuff. Did you have another thought?
Well, sure. I want to expand on the Foundry.
Okay, yeah.
Because this is a great. You're going to see this if you guys spend any time in programming. You're going to see this. Okay, the Foundry is a perfect example of this. It's a production atmosphere. And most businesses are about producing something. Most things are about production. And some of these businesses have been around doing things for hundreds of years. In the case of this Foundry, it was around for about 100 years. And they've been doing things for a certain way, and they've been doing it every day. And so I come in to do a task, and I'm watching. I'm just watching, because you know me, I'm always looking to see, how can I come in here and make this place better? How can I maybe find a job in here that does something, because as a freelancer, that's what you're going to be looking for too. How can I make some money in this? Where is there a place where I can actually you're trying to find a need, and then you're going to try to fill that need. And now you've actually, that's the whole process of being a freelancer. And so I'm always looking. And I remember I wrote this program, and so there's molds in these foundries. This foundry mold. They make mold. They make parts, and out of that part, they have to pour metal into it. So they have these sand molds, and the part goes, or the metal goes in this part, and it cools down, and now you got this great part. It could be a car part. It could be whatever it is. It's something that's metal, right? But they've got to. There's a science behind that. And, temperatures and heat expenses and metal expansion when it cools down and all that. Go ahead.
And I want you to go right back and not lose your train of thought. But
okay.
You told me a story there while you worked there, pouring this molten aluminum, and their shoes weren't set up right. There were rules that you told me that everybody had to abide by if you're out on the floor pouring the molten aluminum. And I think you said some of it got into his shoes, and he just started screaming. And I'm like, oh my goodness, man! Talk about following the rules.
Oh yeah, it's terrible.
I'm sure you got a lot of cool stories. But anyway,
it's a very dangerous place to be working. Really, it really is. But it was kind of cool. I learned a lot there, and but there's a science behind these molds. This heat. It's got to leave the thing. And they've actually got these sleeves that they put on top of the molds, that the mold has a hole that the metal goes up into the sleeves and allows it to cool down. And so what happens is, as it's cooling down, there's metal that drops back down, and it takes the air pockets out of the part so that the part doesn't have a bunch of air pockets in it. It's pretty neat. Anyway, these sleeves are only, they're like fiberglass or something, and they don't cost a lot of money. They're real cheap. But they're like pennies. But these guys do molds like you wouldn't believe. And you got to have these sleeves in order to do certain parts. Well, what happens is these guys that do this production, they don't keep track of things very well. There you go. There's some sleeves right there. And so they're not paying attention to their inventory. They don't have any kind of tracking on this. And so what happens is they run out of a certain size sleeve, and then they can't do the part. Now the customer is going to be upset because their part's delayed, and maybe they even lose the contract. But all because they didn't have this little part here, this little 3-cent sleeve. This little 3-cent sleeve cost them millions of dollars. Wow. So I wrote a program that helps them calculate how many sleeves they need for each order, for each part. So if I've got a part that comes across there and needs, I need 1,000 of those. I've got to cut this 12-inch sleeve. I need each sleeve is going to handle 4 parts. It computed that for them. And I showed it to them, and they're like, I said, so are you interested in doing something more like this? Because I'd also heard that this company made $13 million that last year. And I told him, I said, look, if you made $13 million, I guarantee you lost $2 million just out here working in with all the stuff. There's so much automation that needs to be done here. That was just one example, that sleeve program. There were so many programs that could have been wrote for them that would have saved them millions of dollars, I think. Data is a production person's friend. Any company that's in production, data is their friend. And you need to be capturing that data in every way that you know. So if you can capture that data and you can write apps that will capture that data, you're going to save a company so much money. But some of these companies have been doing this for hundreds of years. It's really hard. When I asked them to leave program, they said, oh, that's so neat. That's so awesome. That's so great. I said, so are you guys wanting to use this? And they said, no, we've got a lot of other things we got to do that are better than this right now. I'm like, yeah, that's the
sometimes you understand their needs better than they do.
Exactly. You know what? You said that. I said all that so that Derek could say that.
Yeah. You need to see their need even before they do. I didn't mean to stop you, but
no, I was actually done. I could go on about that, but I feel like I'm taking too long in that. So I just really think we should probably move on.
Yeah. You were talking about how important data was. I was like, dare I say, data is king.
Well, as long as Patty's not around, you can say that. But if Patty's around, she's going to tell you that Elvis is king.
Oh. Let's talk about benefits. We need to get through this outline. Oh, I didn't mean to go down there. Let's go into benefits. And I'm going to minimize this and talk about them one-on-one because I have some really cool stuff in here. Okay, independence. That's a given. People would rather work for themselves, but when you own a business and you're the top dog, you're the owner of the business, the main person. You might feel like you don't have a boss, but actually you get bosses than what you would as an employee. All your customers and clients then become your boss. If you don't take care of your customers, don't take care of your clients, then you're not going to be in business for very long. And Patty has entered the building with her message about Elvis. Some people believe that Elvis is still alive, by the way, and he's pastoring a church in Central Tennessee. Just FYI, I don't know if that's
Patty keeps Elvis alive in her heart every day. Now that was elegant. That was elegant.
Freelancers are independent contractors who have the freedom to choose their clients and projects. It's really cool. They're not tied to a single employer. So that's nice. Your independence there. Flexibility. Kurt, you like to work late at night. You like that flexibility to...
Well, I think we did a video on that in Accelerator talking about the getting in the zone, right? Didn't we? We did that. We do so many videos for so many different things. I think that was an Accelerator program video, right?
Yeah.
And that zone, it's all about that zone. Boy, that's such an important and elusive thing, getting in that zone. I do my best work in the evenings. Yeah.
Yeah. It was our code construction module that we did for the SDLC that's still in the editing phase. But yeah, we did that recently where we talked about actually getting in and start actually doing the work, the flexibility. Yeah. And Patty says almost 24/7. Work anywhere, work the hours. Of course, there's comes times for meetings, which we all love, right? And then Ellie says, I do my best work around 5 a.m. Kurt, your best work starts around 11 p.m., I think, doesn't it?
Yeah, well, or 8 or 9. But you know what? I remember when I was working, doing the work over there at that foundry, I would get up about 3:30 in the morning. And you're right, Ellie, your mind's freshest in the morning. I think you're the same way, Darren. Sometimes when you first wake up, your mind's just not muddled with all kinds of other thoughts and stuff from the day. You wake up, you're fresh, like Ellie says, she does her best work at 5 a.m. I think I could probably be that way too, if I would just put it down at 11 o'clock at night,
I'm definitely not a morning person. I'm like you. Naturally, I would be a night owl, but I never want to use any type of caffeine or stimulants late at night. And that sort of helps me concentrate, which we talked about the code, inside of our module that we recorded that you were just referring to. So I like to, take that in the morning so I can sleep better at night. So it sort of messes all that up. But yeah, so I try to get.
So Ellie says she gets a lot done before all those meetings start. Yeah, you're right, Ellie. I worked at a place it's the same place Darren worked at, where Darren and I worked together. And I was on a flex schedule, and my boss, it was a constant interaction between me and my boss. Everybody wanted me to man the phones and take care of the customers that we got that we wrote programs for, Yeah. And of course, at this time it was the Army. I think we had contracts with the Army at this point, and they wanted to talk to me. Well, if I'm on the phones, I can't program. So, but yeah, I was a principal programmer in about 5 different projects. But these same people that want me to be on the phones talking to the people are the same people that want to establish these deadlines that say, Kurt, we need this program done by September 15th. Well, here it is, September 10th, and I haven't even started the darn thing yet, and it's because I'm on these phones all day. I can't work. So what I would do is I would work late at night. Everybody's asleep, kids are asleep, the dog's asleep, and I can just get stuff done. Right. Well, it turned out, I thought I need to sleep till about 10 in the morning. Or I would get up at like 6 or 7 o'clock in the morning, and I would program there at home and stay away from the phones. And then I would come in about noon and I would do my phone stuff. But these people would always be angry at me because I wasn't coming in until noon. but yet they were the ones you had to get the program done.
I was upset you wouldn't come. I had to be there at 8 a.m. That was my first programming job. And you're talking about interacting with the boss. Our boss's name was Jeff. And Jeff would like to talk about things and have people. We created this term. I don't know if you had it before I worked there, whatever it was, called co-piloting.
Yeah.
Sometimes he wanted somebody to sit beside him and have somebody talk to while he was just doing his stuff. And I don't even think he was coding, and I think when I started working there, some of the pressure was off of you. And so I'm there. I don't remember answering the phones, but maybe they had me do that. But you'd come in and I'm like, man,
Yeah.
I was so happy when you came in because it was time to go off and get some General's chicken at our favorite restaurant 1 block away.
So what Darren didn't know until now is that the whole reason why he was there was so that he could talk to, I called him Dad. That was our boss, Dad. He always, have you guys ever had that boss that they just want you to sit down as they're programming on the screen and they just want to watch? Hey, can you kind of help me through this? They just want somebody to sit there while and watch them program and you're just sitting there. And I don't mind. I mean, look, it's his dime. If he wants to pay me to do that, I'll do it. But the problem is it's like, I got to get something done because you're going to be the one that says, how come that didn't get done, Kurt? Well, it's because I'm sitting here co-piloting you. Right. So what I did was Darren, I told Darren, I said, you can do all this stuff. I'll get you a job working next to me. Well, what I did is I got him a job co-piloting Dad while I was doing my thing. That was what was going on.
You did, man. You did. I mean, that first job really helped me out and working with you. And I had to pay my dues, right? There's a little bit of a rite of passage your first job.
It was fun. Yeah.
So Ben's got some good. So, Kurt, maybe you could tell us a little bit about flow. We sort of talked about this here recently, but maybe they would benefit because Ben here actually mentions the flow. He ended up continuing to work into the evening. So important, guys. So
yeah, I've told that I've only really truly gotten into that flow, the real flow. Like we talk about it like the Force, right? Or the Matrix, where you can connect into it. It's almost like that. The flow is almost like that for programmers, right? And I've really only got there about maybe a half a dozen times in my entire life. And I remember the one time I did it the best, and it freaks me out. That's why I tell the story. I was leaving. I was working at about 3 o'clock. You know how you guys do that? You got lunch, you do lunch, and you got that post-lunch depression. You want to go to sleep for a little while, food coma. You're like, and then about 2 or 3 o'clock, you get your second wind. All those carbs burn off finally, and you can get your energy going, right? And so then you start thinking, you're coding, and I start getting into that flow a little bit. Now it's 5 o'clock. And all my coworkers are saying, okay, Kurt, see you tomorrow. We're going to go. Yeah, I'm going to be done just as soon as I finish this loop. I'm going to do this loop and I'll be done here. So I'm doing this loop. I'm getting the loop done. It's 5 o'clock. Well, then you get that loop done. You're like, okay, well, I think I can get this other thing done. Oh yeah. Cause I'm in the flow now. Let me get this other loop done, and then all of a sudden it's like, man, I'm hungry. Golly, what time is it? 3 o'clock in the morning. It's 3 o'clock in the morning. I left it with the clock. It was 5 o'clock in the afternoon. I was just going to stay there for another 10 minutes. And I ended up staying there for another 8 hours programming, And so I couldn't understand how come I was so hungry, That's the flow right there, That's
absolutely
the definition.
Well, look at this. Ben says workshop number helped me with a couple of bits. How was the workshop yesterday?
How was it?
Kurt led the workshop yesterday. And I loved it. It was all about collections, and I'd recommend. So I got Mark here as a panelist. He's just on the side in the private chat. He says, "Awesome collections." You were doing things with collections that I mean, joins. Like you can't do joins in Power Apps.
Yeah,
you're doing all kinds of stuff, Kurt. It was really impressive. I haven't seen material on the stuff that you came up with.
Yeah, it was cool because I got
very elegant.
Dang. So yeah, it was very cool because I got, I've done a lot of teaching in my life, but usually Darren's kind of he takes the lead and I'm kind of the co-pilot, right? We talked about co-piloting here, So this was an opportunity for me to go back there and do a little teaching. I don't get to do it very often, so it was fun, And Darren can remember when I was teaching back in the day, my classes were very intense, very, very intense. A lot of information going really fast, man. The chalk or the whatever the marker stuff, the dust was just a flying, and off the whiteboards. And that's kind of what was going on yesterday. We got going on there. It was intense. I think a couple of the students said, I had no idea that 4 hours just passed, It was a lot of fun, but you're right. So I've made some videos in Accelerator about collections, and people say that they're pretty good videos, but I never really get an opportunity to actually connect with the students and talk to them and work with them one-on-one. I love doing that, man. And I thought that workshop was fun because I actually took some of the information from those videos, but I put it into some different ways of looking at it. And it was a lot of fun. I think we got a lot of information. I think people learned a lot. I told everybody at the beginning of that thing that everybody is going to learn at least one thing that they've never done before. I said, even Darren.
You're right.
And it was pretty cool.
I needed your help at the end, man. You like kicked it up to when you hear a song and they modulate into a different key, or you're on a 10-speed bike, you turn on the big gear. You did that the last 30 minutes. Whoa, dude, whoa. You had to help me with my code because you sort of blew my mind. I felt like that could have been like 2 hours, like maybe you breaking out the crayons.
We could have.
Powerful though. What you demonstrated. I mean, you laid the groundwork here in the accelerator. I've got a link up to the accelerator, guys, if you're interested. I don't want to talk too much about it here, but joins and collections and data analysis. I mean, these aren't 3-minute videos, guys. This is in-depth stuff.
Yeah. We didn't even get a chance to talk.
You covered charts. Data shaping. Let's throw them and let's do some oh my goodness, good stuff.
Yeah, we didn't even get through a lot of the stuff that I wanted to do, but that's okay because what we did get through, I feel like everybody learned pretty well. I believe that everybody came out of there really knowing some stuff, and I really think that this is such an important topic that we probably should do that collection again. And guys, there's something different about a workshop. At least I know I can't attest for Darren. I know that for me, when I'm teaching a workshop, when I'm the one that's conducting the workshop, it's different than watching a video or me doing a video. It's actually there's hands-on. We had people in there in that workshop that they haven't even messed with Power Apps yet, and they were trying to tackle collections, but they were getting it done. We were sharing each other's screens. We were going through seeing what the bug was, and because hey, I'm not getting it to work. Because basically what I do when I'm doing a workshop is I'm saying, okay, guys, come on, follow me. We're going to type in this word here, type this word in. Now we're going to type this word in and we're going to go through it. And then I do a section of code and then we break it down and we explain it, so that everybody's got the same code on the screen. And then we talk about that code. And so it was really fun. That's a lot different than the video. There's a lot more interaction going on. And I really enjoy it. And I think that the people that were there, well, they said that 4 hours went by, didn't even know it went by, So I want to encourage people. I want to encourage people to come to these workshops because I think there's just more to it than just watching a live stream or watching videos, Yeah.
And guys, I do have a link in the description to these show notes with all these links. I did a previous freelancing video here. And why I'm saying this now is if you want to know more about it, we have, the workshop. So we every Friday we do a workshop or just about. Here's a link on the upcoming workshops. You can see there's different prices because I'm trying to save people as much money as possible. So that link is there if you guys are interested. Patty says, for me, the workshops are priceless. I learned so much. There you go.
Yeah. And, when we talk about price on these things, I think, so what we, obviously Accelerator, that's our big deal. That's, everything we do goes to the Accelerator. We love the Accelerator program and everything. But we try to do different offerings for different levels of pricing so that people can just afford it. And I really think these workshops are pretty affordable. I mean, and here's the other thing I want to say. sometimes you see these workshop topics and you think, I'm not really ever going to do this, so I don't really care about it. But we talk about so much stuff underneath that topic, So really, there's a lot of it's kind of like watching my videos in Accelerator. I'll go on an hour and a half about collections or something in a video, but sometimes I'll talk about some stuff that's underneath that, some nuggets and stuff that you need to take from that is going to help you and change your whole life with programming, So, these workshops are really good. I think, like I said, I think they're priced pretty cheap so that people can afford them. It is a chunk of time. That's the problem. That it's a chunk of time that you've got to dedicate to that. But if you think about it, you're investing in yourself here, and and it's not just money, it's time, and practice, right? So give yourself that amount of time. If you're going to exercise and you want to work out, you want to be in shape, you have to dedicate the time to do that. And, not just the energy, but the time. And I want to say that this is the same thing, right?
Yeah. So guys, if you're interested in that collection workshop, you can get access to that workshop for just $25, which is pretty good if you consider 4 hours worth of training there. It's not all dopey.
Yeah, she just wants to say hi to everybody. She says hi. She's down here whining, wanting to say hi. Okay. Now your ratings just went way up.
Thank you.
Because we put a puppy up there. It's a girl. It's a girl. Yes.
So where do we leave off? Flexibility is amazing as a freelancer, but you still got those meetings. Let's talk about the variety of work. If you're an employee working for an organization, you might be working on the same thing the whole time you're there. You get old. Freelancers can work on a range of projects in diverse fields, depending on their skills and interests.
Yeah.
And Ellie says, so cute.
Is that she's saying you're so cute? Oh, she's talking about Lucy. She's talking about Lucy. Yeah, Lucy's so cute. Yes, she is.
Payment per project. Payment is usually based on the completion of specific projects or tasks rather than a regular salary. So that might actually be a good thing for you or a bad thing for you. One thing I don't think that most people realize up front if they're trying to get into freelancing is you're going to be learning some more skills that you didn't think that you needed, like sales and some marketing. I mean, you could run ads. I mean, there's all kinds of stuff. Make sure you get a bookkeeper, or you're going to be doing your bookkeeping yourself. There's all kinds of stuff in there. I mean, you can work anywhere in the world. I mean, there's tons of upsides. Hey, there's Amber.
Is that Amber?
Where is he? What is he doing?
Amber? I haven't seen Amber so long. I almost forgot who that was. Is that the same Amber?
It is.
Is it? Oh my goodness. So. Good morning, Amber.
He's our friendly Canadian.
He is.
Which goes to show you can work even in Canada or any country, as long as you got internet, right? Entrepreneurial, did I say that right? Aspect. Does the idea of, you say it.
Entrepreneurial aspect. Boy, that's hard. That's a mouthful there.
Yeah. Freelancing involves managing one's own business, including finding clients, marketing services, handling finances, and sometimes negotiating contracts. And a lot of times there are contracts involved. So I don't know. You start to ramp up that, you might want to have an attorney on retainer just to be able to have them look over a contract. At the least, consult with ChatGPT, who's not a lawyer, but guys, I provide no legal advice, and I provide no medical advice whatsoever on this channel. So there's my disclaimer. Skill development. Freelancers often need to continuously develop and update their skills to remain competitive in their field. If you're an employee of a company, if they're good to you, they have a budget for your training each year to sort of sharpen your saw, keep your skills up to date. What sort of a drawback to being an employee for an organization is like, hey, I know we hired you to do Power Apps, but we've decided to use Smart Sheets or Bubble instead. Is there a market for that? You know, are those technologies you want to work with? Because if you stray from what you love to do, there is an assumption in the technical world. If you have not worked with it or on it in the last 1 to 3 months, you've forgotten it all.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, you know, you're touching on something so much to me, and I'm going to wax on here for a second, guys. I'm going to wax on. So take a deep breath here. So much of this freelancing to me, when you're working for companies, I don't care if you're working for a company and you have a job, or if you're working for a specific person doing this one specific job and then you're going to go on to the next thing. It's all freelancing. So just like we were talking about change, the change is also in control with you too. You don't have to work for a company. You know, we lock into these companies and we say, okay, I got a job working at this place here and blah, blah, blah. They give me a paycheck and I'm doing this thing. But I don't have to work for them. You can choose no at any time, just like they can choose no and fire you at any time or lay you off anytime. You know, you have control though, as a freelancer. When you have a skill as a software developer that can develop in Power Apps or whatever language you need to do, you have a skill that you can take anywhere. So just remember that, folks. You don't have to do it. When they hired you to do this Power App and then they decide they want you to work with something else, you can say, no, I'm not going to do that. Who's the customer here? It goes back to that conversation we were just having. You know, we have to define who's the customer. Do they need you or do they need themselves in this moment? There's another law that Kurt has that I live by. You know, don't let your baggage outweigh your talent. That's the number one rule. I don't care if you can do that in life. If you don't let your baggage outweigh your talent, you're going to be okay, right? So the point is, if you are very talented, you can call the shots a little bit more than you can call the shots if you're not very talented, right? So if you're not very talented, you might need to be in that organization. You might need to be hanging on to that organization with everything you got because you just can't do it anywhere else, you know? But if you're talented, well, then you can take your talents anywhere you want, you know? And that's the goal here, to make you talented, because the more talented you got, the more confidence you got. And now the more the customer you are in every moment. It's all freelancing. Even if you're working for somebody else, you're always working for somebody else. Even Darren, who owns his own company now, is still working for somebody else. He's got customers, and those guys are his boss. You know, it's always about who is the customer in every negotiation. So I just wanted to say, I wanted to wax on for a little bit here, because guys, it's all about getting very skilled at your position. If you're going to do this, then get skilled at it. Don't be an average bear, you know, and don't let your talent or your baggage outweigh your talent. You know, don't go in there being a prima donna and then not knowing what they're doing, because they're going to get rid of you pretty quick. But if you're going to go in there being a prima donna and you're really, really good, they might put up with it a little bit longer, right?
Well, I put up with you, so there's got to be something there.
Yeah, my baggage hasn't outweighed my talent yet.
So you may not have heard it, Kurt, but while you were up on your soapbox preaching there for the past 3 minutes, you got a few amens from the crowd here. They're literally amen, and it's so true. And so, yeah, it seems like a good point that we have actually here in our outline is, how do we price ourselves? So, guys, we are definitely going to talk about that as long as Kurt remains brief in his spiels.
I've got a spiel about that too. So go ahead and get it all out, and then I'll get into my spiel, because I definitely got a spiel about that too.
Well, so we just got off the benefits. I'd sort of like to at least stick with the order of this, because it's an outline that I showed at the beginning, so people are expecting to go down. So, guys, we're definitely gonna I have a lot to say about this. So, so bad side of freelancing. What do we got? People are super flaky. So, guys, especially accelerator students, I know there's a lot of you in the chat and here as a panelist. Sometimes you'll see me make a post in the accelerator school environment, the community there, and I'll say, hey, here's a potential freelancing client of mine. Now, I don't do that for all of them, because I wouldn't have any time to do that. But and I upload the documents and blur names to safeguard the innocent, so to speak. But I ask people, like, how much would you charge for this? What questions would you follow up with them on? And it's sort of a good exercise. And sometimes you guys don't hear me say anything more about that project because people are super flaky. I found that just really flaky. So maybe 30% or less of the people who reach out to you, even if you say everything right, they very well may flake out on you. Now, in order to have them be less flaky, is you got to answer right away. In fact, Fiverr, which I can answer all questions about Fiverr. I can answer a little bit on Upwork, but Fiverr has been the thing that I focused on. So yeah, they rate you on how fast you reply right away. Now you can put an autoresponder, but that does not count towards that metric. Okay, so you've got to say something else. So usually I'll follow up like, hey, here are samples of my work. Make sure that this is the quality of work that you're expecting. Usually people come out, oh no, it looks great, so give me an estimate. And I have to like get them to settle down a little bit, because if they try to get a timeline and a price out of me without them revealing all the information, whether they know it or not, then obviously danger, it could come back and bite you in the butt. Yeah. So answer right away. I've had people say, like, they'll respond, I'll go to the bathroom, or I'll be like, okay, I'm going off to lunch, and they'll be like, hello, like expect you like to drop everything. And really bad, let's say unrealistic expectations. And you sort of have to manage that. Maybe you tell them like, hey, I'm going to respond here. I'm going to be in and out the rest of the day. And sometimes I'll reply on my phone. I'm like, hey, I'll get back to you, but when I get back to the office, so just be ready for that. Unrealistic expectations. Curtis, is there anything you'd like to say about people being flaky?
Yeah. So many times, and I never really dealt with like when we're talking about Fiverr, I never really dealt with this internet type client coming in. They're basically shopping for work to be done, and they're using Fiverr to be their source of shopping. That's what they're doing. They're the customer, and we're trying to sell them that we're going to do this project for them. And so I'm used to going in and saying, hey, you want us to do this project for you? Okay, blah, blah, blah. Let's do it. And we have this negotiation. We're talking. I feel like both sides are winning. When I leave, I feel like they're going to win and I'm going to win. And so everything comes on, and then you never hear from them again. And it's like, and I take that personally. I take that personally because I'm thinking, I'm trying to develop. Business is about a relationship to me. And I'm trying to develop more than just, I don't want money changing hands. I want something because I want to do good work for you. And I want that to be more good work later down the road. I want to be able to lock in, and this is going to be somebody potential for. And so I take it personally when they don't do that. And I have to change my thinking about it, because this internet world, this way that we're doing business nowadays is changing. They're looking at this. The client is looking at this like this. It's a supermarket, and they picked up a box of Pop-Tarts. Me being a programmer, and they picked up this box of Pop-Tarts, and they said, we had this great negotiation, and I really like these Pop-Tarts, but maybe I don't need them today. And then they go on. But then the box of Pop-Tarts, that's me. I'm sitting here going, wait a minute, I want you to buy me. So it's a different world that we live in now. So life is like a box of Pop-Tarts.
You never know what you're gonna get.
You never know what you're gonna get.
Tony says, great wisdom, guys. Ellie says, I think it's a blessing in the beginning versus doing the work and maybe not getting paid.
I got a lot to say about that, Ellie. I got a lot to say about that. I love that comment. We're going to talk about that. I got stuff to say about that.
Are you going to say it?
Well, no, because you want to get to there first, right?
Oh,
you want to get through your outline, you said. So
yeah.
There's a place when we talk about pricing ourselves.
We're going to get to that momentarily. And I wanted to answer Ellie's question. My average is 2-hour response time, and that includes me getting messages while I'm asleep. And a lot of times I will tell them, hey, this person, it's 3 o'clock in the morning where this person's at, they might respond a little bit later. You know what I mean? So my response time is 2 hours. And I can tell you what, man, if somebody sends you a message for the first time on Fiverr and you saw the email like, oh yeah, I need to respond to that. And then you don't do it. Oh my goodness. It really messes with your ratings. It really does. You got to be on the ball for that. So make sure you install the app on your phone.
And also, I don't know if this is that response time is really important, man, because it's about, look, this is your business. So you need to take this seriously, and it's your responsibility. We talked about that early on. When you're freelancing, it's not your boss's responsibility anymore. It's your responsibility. You're the boss. You're in control of this thing, and this is you. So how much do you value this, man? And so it's all about responsibility. And I've got a big spiel I want to talk about when it comes to opportunity and responsibility. We're going to do about that later on too. But I just want to say that you need to be on point with this. If you're going to be a freelancer and you're going to open up your store for people to come in like at Fiverr, you need to be on the ball on that. If you let them go one day, you probably lost an opportunity. And you got to ask yourself, how many opportunities am I going to get? So I'm just, and that opportunity might have been $1 million for you. You don't know. So stay on it.
And Fiverr will tell you like, hey, this is a select business client. They typically will have large and consistent amount of projects. Treat them well. They'll actually straight up tell you that. Amber says, give your best grasping the client, but don't break down when they go away. Be willing to walk away from any project.
That's true. That's my problem though. My problem is when they don't pick up, when they put that box of Pop-Tarts back on the shelf, I start crying. Yeah.
Sometimes when I have so much work, I'm swamped work, I don't have time to do it. Sometimes I'll just and that's how I worked up to $250 an hour is like, I'm going to throw out $100. When I was making $50 an hour, I don't have time, $100. And people would say, okay. I'm like, oh, really? Shell said, I had multiple times when doing websites, I think I take it too personally. Yeah. I mean, it's easy to take it personally, Yeah. And Rob says, great. Thanks for the session. Well, you're welcome.
Yeah.
And Ellie says, wow.
Now, I don't know what correct and wow was replying to, but maybe it was something I said. I don't know.
I think somebody said you were elegant or something, and everybody's
that had to be it.
Yeah. And now Ben says, would there be any benefit to you with regards to the algorithm to outsource initial follow-ups outside of your office hours, some kind of virtual assistant? Yeah, but realize with Fiverr, I've got to give someone else credentials to my account. So if I got $3,000 sitting in my account, they could just deposit that into their account if they have access while I'm asleep.
Yeah.
You got to be able to trust people,
And I don't want to allow. So they always say, if you want something done right, wow, the response time any hour. Yes, Kurt, thank you. See there, Darren, I am. So don't you ever argue with me again. What was I saying? I can't remember what I was saying now.
I think you were distracted by your head getting so big there.
No, but
there's an slap you in the face.
I'm getting ready to throw something out here. Stop, silence. So there's something to be said about if you want something done right. We're just so professional here, aren't we? If you want something done right, you do it yourself, right? I don't want to lead when it comes to my clients, when I'm starting my potential clients, I don't want I don't want to leave anything to a virtual assistant. Somebody, so I don't want to, as much as I love Darren, when it comes to me talking to my clients, I don't want to leave nothing. I don't want him to be talking to them. I want to be the one talking to him, at least initially, you know. Now, maybe once I get some kind of a relationship established, I might say, hey, you know, I got this buddy of mine, Darren. I'm going to bring him in this thing. He's really good. But I want to be the one that's going to decide whether or not I want to take this contract or not. And I want to be the one that is going to be talking to them, not somebody else. And when I hear virtual assistants, I'm hearing somebody that doesn't hardly even speak English. You know, when I hear about virtual assistant, I'm thinking somebody, you know, it's really,
which there's nothing wrong with not speaking English, but
no, but
sometimes it's important to speak.
Yeah, I probably shouldn't have said it that way. I meant like, so somebody from, like, I'm in the United States right now. And sometimes people that, if I'm dealing with an employer from the United States, they want to be talking to somebody from there, and they don't want to be dealing with somebody that they can't hardly understand, you know, because of an accent or whatever. And I'm not even talking, I'm talking like from Europe or anywhere, you know.
Wrong with Europe or European.
No, I'm just saying that I don't want to leave that to a virtual assistant for that part. Now, there's places where virtual assistants are really great, you know, and it's important to have that, but not that part where I'm initially talking to them, you know.
Communication and making first impressions are really important.
Yeah.
I think it sort of goes in. I don't know if that's where you were going or thinking about that.
It is. It's all about that communication, but it's also about me and that opportunity. Each person that comes into Fiverr or wherever you're going, that's an opportunity. And like I said, I got a lot I want to talk about when it comes to opportunity and responsibility. But Darren wants to go down this. Darren wants to get there first. So let's get there.
All right. People are super flaky. It's hard to get started. You create a Fiverr profile in the workshop next Friday with me. We'll create a Fiverr. We'll create a Upwork account. The jobs just don't start pouring in at that point. In fact, you may not see anything.
Wait a minute. What are we doing Friday?
We're having a workshop on doing freelancing.
Okay. What are we going to do at this workshop? What are we going to do? We're going to sit here and talk about it some more? Or what are we going to do at this workshop?
You're funny. We're gonna get stuff done. We're gonna actually.
What are we gonna do? What are we gonna do, Darren? At this
we're gonna set up your Fiverr account, set up your Upwork account. At least those two.
We are actually going to set up a Fiverr account or an Upwork account or both.
You are. Everybody that attends the workshop should be creating it as we go along, because these profiles are not easy to set up. And they want you to enter all kinds of information, and it doesn't fit either you or Power Apps really well. So there's a lot of guidance I could probably provide.
Yeah, there's an art to this, because I've seen your your Fiverr account. It's pretty slick. You've done a good job on that. So this is important, guys. So this workshop, this isn't going to be just talking about. We're actually going to be making stuff. We're going to be doing it. You're going to actually, at the end of this workshop, you're going to actually have a Fiverr account. That's pretty cool. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I'm excited.
Yeah, Amber, hope to see you there. Now there are sometimes, now you can make a choice. Like if you don't want to do business with Fiverr for some reason, I've had some people tell me, it's like, well, I really don't like their practices or their philosophy or whatever. It could be maybe you don't like the CEO. You know, there are tons of other ones to use. Like if you don't like one, you don't have to use it. You know, there's Upwork and a bunch of others. So I just want to say, it just so happens to be Fiverr is what I know the most about, because that's, I don't know. You drive yourself nuts if you try to create 5 or 10 accounts, you know, keeping up with everything. So Amber is excited. Yeah, hope to see you there, Amber. So I put this is the link to it right here, if you want to know more about that. And then Shell said, OMG, yes, because I've started to set it up, but I'm stuck. You see, that's why the workshop will be important, because we're gonna power through that. We're gonna get it done, and I'm gonna give tips and tricks on how to set up your gigs. You know, these little gigs, like there's all kinds of different things you can do. Like I put out, I think I've got one on analysis and design. I do it for $1,000. And so you can give me your requirements, and I'm going to create a requirements document for you. You know, I've got teaching, I've got tutoring, I'm going to create a Power Apps for you. So you can create all kinds of different gigs.
Right.
The longest time.
Patty just asked while you're talking there. I'm
Mhm.
sorry to interrupt. I thought you
Mhm.
were done. But can we review existing Fiverr profiles in the workshop? Well, sure, because that's what the whole process is going to be. You're going to do work and you're going to review it and you're going to say, is this good or not? You know?
Yeah.
So that's going to be cool. That's going to be, yeah, definitely, Patty.
Absolutely. And I actually, I don't remember the name of the live stream, but I actually did that with Amber. He created a profile out on Fiverr, and I don't think he had it turned on or something like that. I'm like, listen, you need to do this. You need to do this, guys. I've made it all the way to top seller. So there's like, I think it starts off with like level 1. Like you're a new seller, then if you do so many things, then you become a level 1. And guys, it takes a long time to move up. And then I made top seller, then I made a Fiverr Pro. So I've got a lot of knowledge and wisdom since I've been through all those steps, at least on the Fiverr side. So yeah, absolutely. We'll review it. So that will be next Friday, 1 p.m. EST. And here is the link. And if you don't want to have to look at this link and type it into a browser, guys, go to the video description right now. There is a link to this note. Okay, to this note right here, the show notes. And you got access to the other freelancing live stream that I did. But yeah, so we're going to be doing some practical things in there and get you up and going. If you don't do videos, I wonder if you can still get work. Yeah, I'll be going over that in the workshop because there's a few things that you need to do. Otherwise, you're not going to get any orders. Okay. And we'll be going through that. There's a lot of tips and tricks that I had to learn the hard way. And once I implemented those, it got to the point where I can't, I don't have enough time to do all these jobs. So anyway, so it looks like Kurt left me despite him knowing I have abandonment issues. So I guess I'll just, oh, there you are. Okay, very good. It could be very slow. I actually said it in 2 different ways. Hard to get started. It's very slow at first. Hey, what about scams and scammers? So I'm going to put Darren's take. When you create, it's times you'll get messages from people. It's like, hey, I live outside the US and I've got clients in the US. I want you to create an Upwork account and go to meetings and do all this stuff. I'm like, dude, I am not involved with a shady practice. That sounds shady. That sounds deceptive to me. And no, I've had people say, hey, I want you to create a website that looks like my university's website that will show all my classes and that there's a beside each one because I'm going to open up my laptop, show my parents what my grades were. I'm like, no, man, I'm not going to do that. You know, I'm not down with that. And so you get some shady requests. And sometimes people will message you and all this stuff. And by the time you wake up and try to respond to them, Fiverr will say, oh, this person's been banned from the platform. Well, they might start off sounding like a potential client, but it ends up, they're like, hey, click on this Google Doc. And then it's got other information and they're trying to get you to click on things. And so there's a little bit of that going on. Kurt, I think you had a lot or a completely different angle on scams.
Actually, I think I already talked about it. It wasn't really on this. It really was. I don't think it was on the scam part. I think it was, I think I covered it. I said all that to say, I think I covered it already.
You've got something big to talk about when we get to opportunity.
Oh, I got that. And how to price yourself.
All right. Well, let's move along here. Okay, so the bad sides of freelancing and the danger sort of coincides with this. Guys, if you don't plan and design, if you don't handle the project and the client right, set expectations, we've got a lot to say about that, especially in the accelerator. We've got a lot of material out there. 80% of software projects fail in some form in one way or the other. Okay. You don't want to be working on one of those. You don't want clients upset with you, asking for all their money back. You got to take care of things. You got to take care of business. You got to have a high level of responsibility. There's several ways in how that can go wrong. And so we'll talk about, we're limited on time today, but we can go more into that during the workshop. But most of it comes down to underestimate underestimation on time and cost. That's the big one.
Well,
Um,
that's
you
such
got
a
to make
big
sure you got the requirements, you completely understand the data, and you communicate well with people. Otherwise, you are going to have some danger, and you're gonna learn from the burn, which
yeah.
we don't recommend learning from the burn, but that's ultimately how you really do learn.
Yeah. Yeah. I want to say, so this is, you touched on this. I think I talked about this some in the videos that we were doing recently, but for me, this is some of the hardest part when it talks about costing something, or when it comes about, when they ask, they always want to know how much is it going to cost and how long is it going to take to do it. And when you're in a project, we've talked about this many times. There's always, in every project you do, there's at least one thing that you've never done before. You know, when you were a little kid, 2+2 used to be a hard thing until you figured out how to do it. Now 2+2 is pretty easy, right? So when you're when you're problem solving, you don't know how long it's going to take if you've never done it before. Now, if you've done this problem before, it's going to be okay. But every project has at least one thing, right? One thing that you've never done. So
That's
so
true.
when they ask you how long is it going to take, well, I don't know, because that one thing might take me a minute, you know. And then how much is it going to cost? Well, I don't want to rip him off, her off, and I don't want to rip me off. So, but I don't know. So many times when they say how much and how long, I feel like I'm just doing this. I'm covering my eyes and throwing a dart at a dartboard, and wherever it lands, that's how much it's going to cost or how long it's going to take, because I just don't know, you know. And sometimes you can do all the feasibility studies you want to do, but it all comes down to you and how long are you going to take. So you got to kind of gamble on yourself. And I don't like gambles, because you know what? Sometimes I lose. And when I lose, it sucks, you know? So there's a danger there. And that's something that I have the hardest part resolving, even after all of these years. You know, in fact, maybe the longer I do this, that's the one that I lose confidence in, because you just don't know.
Yeah. So we skipped the platforms. I'll just mention it and then we'll come right back here. Okay.
Okay.
So you got Fiverr, you got Upwork. I would recommend starting with these two. These are the two that will be covering the workshop. And if we have enough time, we'll go over Freelancer. But it's just not about these platforms. We're going to be going into more depth on a lot of these topics that have been brought up. I do have a link in the show notes right here. Okay. And you'll see pros and cons to each one of these. Okay. 99 designs, Dribble, people per hour, ServiceScape, Design Hill, TaskRabbit. Now, some of these were a lot of people do freelancing is in the space of design work, you know, graphic design, artwork, that type of thing. So some of these cater more to those types of roles, where these top three are going to be really good for people doing something like Power Apps work. Okay. So let's get back over here to pricing yourself. You must, it's the initiation phase of a project and the gathering the requirements, the planning and design. You really have to do those two phases of the project before you can give a good estimate. It's not going to be a good estimate at all until you do those things.
You're just covering your eyes and throwing a dart until you do those things.
Before estimating time or cost. Actually, I'll do this. You must gather all requirements. And you might think, oh, I'll just meet with them over Zoom and take notes and they'll tell me about this, that. Well, you may very well do that. But there is, you got to be detailed oriented. You got to listen really intently. And while you got them on the line, you got to be asking you got to be asking so many questions. They almost feel like you're trying to slow them down. That's exactly what you're doing. Because if you don't slow them down, they're like, listen, I just need a single screen. And it's so weird how fast they want to talk. They just want to get you on a Zoom or a phone call and diary of the mouth. And they think as long as they say it, no matter they're talking 100 miles an hour, blah, 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 it's like, okay, how much? And you're like, well, first of all, I'm glad I recorded that because I need to go back through it and take more thorough notes, write down things I missed. You got to gather all the requirements, but you also have to analyze I spell analyze requirements. Okay. You need to actually design things, design data, design the screens. Think of all the wireframing, the user stories, all that type of stuff. Okay, you need to design. Think about how you're going to do it, and then get sign off. You take the documents. There are deliverables in the first two stages of a software project: the defining the initiation phase, and the designing phase. The deliverables are the requirements documentation, with the wireframes, with all these things that you came up with. And you need to go back to them and give them some time to look it over, and you sign off. Say, "Yeah, that's exactly what I want." And then you tell them, "Okay, it's going to be this much," and you need to give them a line item. If it's really a one screen application, maybe you could just give them a simple estimate. It's a really simple application, but make sure it's really a simple application. Anything medium to large size, you need to give them some time to look at it, give them line items, because it's going to be in the realm of thousands. And if it's not in the realm of thousands, I think you're really underselling yourself, or maybe you're just a beginner and you don't have a lot of confidence in yourself. But and when they come back with like, "Whoa, that's a lot of money," I mean, you could respond, "Well, that's a big program that you want." And it's like, "Listen, I can come down on the price. Which one of these 15 things can you do without?" And they might make the decision, "Oh, I don't need that. I don't need that." Okay, and then the price goes down, right? But if they wanted everything, they might actually really think, "Well, I really want everything." Well, do you want a good app? Well, I need something cheap, and I need it fast. Why? I don't compromise on quality whatsoever. And I'll straight up tell them, like, there are literally hundreds, not thousands, of other people doing Power Apps work here on Fiverr, and I'm sure you can find somebody that will do this whole project for $15. Do you think that you're going to get the level of quality that you want out of that $15 transaction? And they know they're not going to get good quality. So, stand up for something, know your worth, know your quality. And at the beginning, there's some time involved if you're a beginner just starting out, of building your confidence. That comes with time. And Kurt, you mentioned it. Look for win-win scenarios. I'm not looking to rip somebody off, but I don't want to get ripped off either. Listen, I want us both to walk away from this project like, "That was a great project. What do you want done next?" Or them asking, "Hey, do you got time for my next project?"
Exactly.
And I do have a comment. I think it was from Ellie. Yeah. So this is, do you have to do maintenance after project completion? Well, you should bring it up and say, in your line items, you might have maybe, I would say 25 to 30% of the whole price of the project. Add on to that for maintenance and support. You could make it 3 months, or make it a year. And if it's sort of like a retainer, you could tell them like it's a retainer, and it's like, "Hey, listen, I got just coming in. If you want me to be available in 3 months' time, when there's something that happens and you need me to fix something within 24 hours, yeah, I need a retainer if you want me to be available for that." Right? Do you agree with that, Kurt?
Exactly. Totally.
What time is the workshop? It's 1 p.m. EST, or noon Kurt's time, CST. What are the must-ask questions that need to be asked when getting requirements? Get them to ask. It sounds really simple. You ask them pretty much, what do you need built? What? But you also need to find out who. The who, what, when, where, why. and to what extent. All these questions that you asked, that you learned in your high school journalism class. You find out all these details, the who, what, when, or why. Okay. The who's going to be using it? Do they have computer skills? Are they all going to be sitting in the same office? Or, there's all kinds of things, like really sort of delve into that. Why do you need the project built? Do you realize that you could just use a Microsoft form for that, or you could use Excel for that? Oh yeah, I'll just do that then. Okay. Well, what were you going to say?
Yeah, I was just gonna say that we actually have some video on that where we actually talk about that. There's a lot to be said about that question. That question right there is an entire live stream.
Probably. It is. Absolutely.
Because really it's about going into this meeting. You got that initial meeting that they want to have this project built. You're going at a high level, but then they want to get down into the weeds of this thing and the low level stuff. You've got to know what questions to ask. And you need to know, more importantly, you need to know what questions they need to ask.
Interesting. Like, give me an example.
Well, okay. So when they don't understand the program, they know they need a program wrote, but they don't know what needs to be done. So what kind of questions should they be asking? Well, you should be asking what's it going to take for you to do this project? What are the resources that you need from me as somebody who is paying you to do a program for me? What resources do you need from me to be able to do this? So that you can gather the requirements, So sometimes you need to be directing them to answer those questions or to ask those questions.
Absolutely. We've said so much in the modules we've done for the accelerator program. We've talked a lot about being the adult in the room. You need to have the lay of the land. You need to know the software development lifecycle process, and sort of guide them through this. And the who, what, or why. There's a lot of stuff in there that I go through that may not be evident by just me saying who, what, when, or why. There's a lot involved in each of those questions. And you need to be careful with the why question, because people are like, well, why do I need this? Hey, I'm coming to you for a job. It's like, listen, when I ask why, I'm not suggesting that you really don't need it written. I need to know the why, so I know that I'm going to give you what you need. Because
sometimes
you're right,
though, Darren. Sometimes you're right. Sometimes they don't need it written, and sometimes you're actually doing them a benefit by saying, "Look, you can just go over here and get this done here."
Maybe they need a model-driven application. Maybe they need a Power Apps portal or a Power Pages, or maybe they just need a PHP website or a WordPress website. You don't want them to walk away from the project saying, man, I asked for a Power Apps application. They gave me one, but really what I needed was a spreadsheet or whatever. Man, they're probably going to end up feeling like they got ripped off. So I just tell people, like, hey, have you considered, there's already CRM systems out there. Yeah, we've looked at them and none of them meet our needs. Okay, that's exactly why you need custom software built. And they can tell when you're like, you tell them like, hey, we could do this in SQL Server. We could do this. I could do this for you, but you may not need that, So you're like looking out for their best interest. People can feel that, I believe, and sort of see through it if you're not.
So as a freelancer, really, for me as a freelancer, you're more than just a software developer. I call myself an automation support person. So I am ready. I'm there to support the automation of any business needs. That's what I look at myself. And sometimes that isn't developing software for somebody. It's all about providing value for your potential customer. And you're going to provide value by saying, you don't need this written. You can do this over here. You just saved them a ton of money. That's a lot of value you just provided. They're going to remember you for that. But I don't know. I don't want to interrupt what you were doing there, Darren. I just want to make sure that because I got a couple things. Ellie had asked something about price, and I got a lot to say about pricing yourself and opportunity. So I want to make sure that before I go in there, that you have gotten through what you wanted to get through.
And guys, if we don't get to everything today, of course, we'll be in the workshop. I'm somewhat saying that facetiously. Do you ever get a client that doesn't want you to record the call? Rarely will I get. Now, if somebody does, I'm like, well, first of all, It depends on what the meeting is for. A lot of times, if they want me to tutor them in Power Apps, it's like, yeah, I don't need the recording. I like to provide the value of sending you the copy of the video so you can go back and watch it if you are you sure you want me to turn the recording off?
Yeah.
So in requirements, the reason why I'm recording is that I can't write as fast as they're talking. I need information. If it's information to me, I need it very slow, almost in writing. And sort of go maybe read a paragraph again, so it's very difficult for me. So I need a recording so that so I can make sure I get everything. I don't forget anything or anything falls through the cracks per se. So
So one of the things I like to sometimes they've got a good reason. Like maybe it's some military top secret stuff. We can't have recordings going on. I get that, but sometimes you're dealing with somebody who's just got a lot of problems being recorded for their own, what did we call it? Maybe dysfunctional reasons. Maybe they just they don't like to hear their voice and they don't want anybody on it recorded or whatever.
Maybe it's just a preference.
And if I run into that, for me, that's a flag for me. As a potential freelance person, I don't want to work with people like that. Sometimes if people don't want to be recorded for that reason, I'm gonna go away because I feel like there's going to probably be potential issues down the road. These people are really full of themselves for the wrong reasons, and I don't want to mess with that kind of thing. You get to pick who you're going to work with, and that's true. In any industry, I don't care if you're working for somebody or freelancing, it's all working, and you get to pick who you're going to work with. And I want to work with the people I choose to. I'm not going to just sit here and just gravel to work with this to anybody. And if I see a red flag, I'm shutting it down.
I should have added that in here. We could add it to the workshop because this is a big deal. Is identifying, let's just say bad apples or bad clients. You do not want to be married to a bad client that goes for months and they just make you absolutely miserable. If you get an order canceled, at least on Fiverr, I think it counts really poorly. It's like a bad mark on your profile.
Yeah.
So I'll put up with a lot, but I also want to interact with the people. So if somebody is talking about the project and I'm responding to them, but they say something like, "Hey, are you still there?" I'm like, "Hey, I'm out on a date night with my wife, or I'm spending time with my kid. It's Saturday or Sunday. I'm in the middle of a live stream."
Coming across a little needy here, bud.
Yeah. How desperate are they? And usually those people, they want something done by tomorrow morning. Unreasonable. When people show you their true colors, they're doing you a benefit. They're pretty much showing you, hey, I'll be a pain in your rear. So I will either I will gracefully decline the project in one way or the other. And sometimes that is in the form of, listen, you're going to need to pay me $20,000 for that project, where normally I would have priced it at $8,000 for somebody else. But I'll put up with you, but you're gonna pay a premium. And really, it's almost in a way like I don't want the project,
Nope.
But I'd be willing to put with it if so. Yeah.
Again, if you're talented, you can get away with more of that than if you're not, right? Yeah. If you're not very talented, you're graveling for the project and you'll work with just about anybody. But if the better you get and the more confidence you get, you just choose who you're going to work with. Yeah. And I want to say this. Hold on one more time. I'm going to be happy at what I do. Okay. You only get one crack at this life. I'm not going to be miserable in any job that I do. If I don't like my job, I'm going to go get another job. I can get a job anywhere. I'll go wash dishes. I don't care. I'll do that. If I'm not enjoying myself, I'm quitting. I'm not going to do it. I'm just not 1 minute, so I guess I just suggest that you guys think about that when you're working.
Yeah. And you get more freedom for that as a freelancer. Yeah. So watch for those red flags.
Yeah.
And maybe we could talk about this more later, because I've got actually a lot to say about this more later. If we have time today, I'll share it. But if not, we got the workshop. Okay. Did we finish what we were saying up here before? Yeah, you must gather the requirements and design and all that type of stuff. I also want to answer Ellie's question here. Is there ever a one-screen application? Very rarely. If it's a simple application, there'll probably be at least 2 or 3 screens. There might be a drop-down list or there's something that needs to be there that they don't realize. And then Ellie also asks, do you hand over apps to developers? Rarely. If anybody, I would be handing them off to accelerator students, because they've been trained in the way that I do it. And if on the off chance a student drops the ball, I want to be able to take the product, finish it, deliver it on time. And you know what I mean? But that means that you're not using forms, you're not using look columns, you're using my jumpstart kit. You name your variables properly. There's all kinds of things that I know you're going to be doing as an accelerator student. So if anybody, it would go to my accelerator student. I'm always curious if someone goes in there and makes changes in production. And some organizations, developers are not even allowed. They don't have any access to production apps, just as a user. I often get the question of, can you train them? Well, you send them to us and we'll train them. Yeah.
I think what she was referring to is that they want her to train. They want her to train these other people so that they can take over the development of the app.
Take over. Yeah. I actually have a project right now, a large project I'm working on, where they want a few months of my time to take all their stuff in one system and put it into Power Apps. And after that, all these people are going to maintain and create all their own apps.
So Ellie also asked in this, she says, so when you finish an app for a client, when do you hand it off to them? And so that's part of the life cycle of your app. Okay. When you first write an application, it's a baby application, and there's probably going to be a lot of bugs in it, and you got to support that. Right. But after a certain amount of time and a certain number of bug fixes, your program's not a baby app anymore. It's a full mature program that's completed. Okay. And then we call that's the stage of the game that we call a technical transfer of your information. So you provide them the documentation of it. You give them the data dictionary, you give them everything. And you say, I no longer support this. This is your baby now. And there's probably not much of a need for support of it anymore. And if they want continued support, now it's time to consider, like he was talking about, do you want a retainer? You want to put me on a retainer? No, but maybe if I call you, can you come in and fix it? Yeah, it might cost you $250 an hour, but I'm going to come in and fix it if there's a problem. But you're probably not going to be on the hook anymore for that. That's what they call the tech transfer. Your program's done. Time to go on to another thing.
And if you ever look at documentation of what the SDLC is, there's like a handover phase and a disposition, where you're faced with. A lot of times entry-level developers are given other projects to maintain, and they'll give the new projects to the more experienced developers or senior level developers,
Yep.
So I also want to go back. I use a template. Okay. So Dow says plan transition from citizen developer to freelancer. So I for sure won't be aware of their business at first, hence the need to ask good questions. Absolutely.
Well, and then we talk about that quite a bit too in some of the videos. I'm going to mention it here too. When I was getting my degree in computer science, I couldn't understand how come I had of course I had my core classes of, Pascal and C++ and all these different programming classes. But then I had all these psychology classes. I had accounting classes. I had math classes. I had psychology, sociology, all these different classes. I'm like, why have I got all this crap? I just want to be a programmer, And then after I got done and I got out there in the real world and I worked in this, boy, I learned that It is. There's a psychology to this whole thing. And you've got to learn social skills, and you got to understand where people are at so you can meet them at their map of the world. There's all these soft skills stuff that you've got to do before you can even start putting your fingers on the keyboard. My cat gets to use the keyboard more than I do when it walks across the keyboard. I'm always doing all this other stuff, even today, I'm working with Darren and I want to program, man. But I spent all my life doing Zoom calls and meetings and all this stuff. It's like, you've got to do that. You've got to be able to be very good at all these other areas in this thing,
Can I say something? Working as an employee for an organization, I really don't like meetings. And, they do these things called stand-ups. And they're only supposed to last for 15 minutes. But, man, I've been in too many that go for like 30 minutes, an hour, and it's just like a space for everybody, just like anything on your mind just comes out through your mouth. And let's discuss that. Oh, now that you brought that up, Barry, do you finish your report? And everybody's sitting there listening about Barry's report. It has nothing to do with you. And now that I own a business, all I do are meetings. It's like, it feels like, and I'm the one scheduling them.
Yeah.
It's just sort of like a weird full circle type of thing,
Michelle says it's Saturday. That's what I'm talking about, Michelle. It's Saturday.
It literally is Saturday, but you want to be freelancing so that it feels like every day is Saturday, right, Kurt?
Exactly. When I'm doing what I want to do, it's Saturday every day.
So Dow asks, do clients usually provide a service user, or do you build it on your own dev account? This is a great question. I actually added it here because it should have been here. Which tenant environment will you work in? I typically will ask them up front, like, hey, if I do this project, are you going to create an account for me in your tenant? Sometimes it's yeah, sure, why not? And sometimes, I got to ask. If they got to ask, IT department is going to, a lot of times, not going to allow some guy off Fiverr have an account into their organization, let alone give them enough permission to be building apps and access to their databases and all that type of stuff. In the smaller organization, yeah, sure, I'll just go in here and create an account for you. What do you want your password to be? You want to work in their environment, because if you don't, you work in your own environment, then it's more difficult to show progress, to share the app with them. People aren't going to understand how to deploy your app in their organization, in their own tenant, despite you giving them very detailed steps. It's just not going to happen. They're going to try to deploy like, oh, there's this error and this doesn't work, and you have to, and then you do a bug fix, and now you got to redeploy. Kurt, do you remember when we wrote stuff in VB6? We had to install it on people's PCs all the time.
Oh my gosh.
I love the move to ASP or ASP.NET, where I just update the web server and everybody's using the new web app. Deployment, yeah, moving stuff around. What about data? Moving data in, data out. You need a dev environment. You need a test environment. You need a production environment. You need to negotiate that with them. You need to price it higher, maybe 10 or 20% higher, if they will not give you an account, because there's so much more work you got to do. And if they don't, you almost have to create like an external guest user in your tenant, allow them to use the app so they can poke around at it and give you feedback.
Yeah, I'm almost thinking, working with you, my experience working with you, I'm a programmer and a teacher. That's what I am. I don't get into all that admin of all that crazy stuff that they do, and I tend to try to leave that to you. But the more I work with you in this thing, and we're dealing with people, the more I think I need to start really learning this in my own spare time, because I think I can get a really good job making a lot of money just doing admin work for people.
Absolutely.
Because there's just a big need for it. Almost nobody does it. It's on almost every call that we do, that's a big question. It's something that I'm thinking I got to get good at, man, because there's a need out there for that.
Even large organizations that have a sizable, seasoned, decent size IT department, They'll be like, what? You need access. They're like, what's Power Apps? What's the Power Platform? What do I need to do? They have like no clue about this. Like you guys are an M365 shop, right? You guys use Outlook and right? You're a Microsoft shop, right? You use Active Directory, or now called Intra. I mean, yeah, this has been out here for a few years, guys. I don't say that, but they expect me to be everything to everyone for the whole step. And it's like, listen, I'm not an expert in deployment, but this is what I do. This is what I've learned. So don't expect me to have every answer off the top of my head when something happens, because what my expertise is app development. Now I've managed servers, I've managed networks. I don't like that type of work. So I don't try to learn more things as things come out. But yeah, I don't like that type of work, and I've had to out of necessity. But my value has gone up, 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 up. When I worked for the state of Florida, the network administrators would rely on me for managing servers, if you can imagine that, because I knew so much about SQL Server and so much about the web server. Microsoft's web server is called IIS. And they're like, one time they were doing something on my database server, and they renamed it, and it messed so many things up. And then from there on, oh, we need to install the new version of SQL Server here. Darren, do this. I'm like, listen, guys, I don't want to be, I want to be a developer, even though I know how to do it. Let me help you do it, and you sort of shoulder that responsibility, and I'll offer whatever expertise I have. That's the stance that I take. If you really enjoy it and like to be a master, what do we call it? Master of all things, jack of all trades, master of none. If you like having a lot of variety, maybe you will like that. But I said all that to say, I don't know. Where was I going with that, Kurt? Maybe there's a question.
I don't know. I guess how I identify with that is, programmers tend to like to write programs, and systems people like to try to work with systems. And I kind of think that along the lines of that, programmers don't like to work with systems, and systems people like, basically when I say that, I say network administrators, things like that. Network administrators don't like to write programs, and programmers don't like to work on networks, and I've had to, because of my programming, in order to debug or to prove that it's not my program that's the problem, it's the network, I've had to become very good at network administration. I don't like it. I hate it, but I'm not too bad at it, at least at the simple stuff, and that's kind of like, I think what you're saying in this is that, you've become an administrator by necessity, because you've had to do that in order to get your programs that you wrote to function right. So you've gotten good at doing that. It's not something that you want to, it's not Saturday for you when you're working on that.
Yeah, it's not enjoyable. I'd rather be writing code. I like designing screens, designing databases. I like using the creativity, and I find app development there's so much creativity and constructiveness to it. I thought it would be fun being a network admin, but you're like a fireman. You just put out fires, you fix things. You might, if you're lucky, get to put in a server if you convince all the management that the servers are worth the money, and the old servers, you got to make a case for all that. I like to create things, not fix things all the time.
Exactly. I don't know. And here I am. So Microsoft has created this thing. I always say we'll complicate a ham sandwich, right? It's people. People will complicate a ham sandwich. We'll take something simple and we'll fix it till it's not simple anymore, right? And then we can't figure out how come this is so hard. Well, we did it to ourselves, and I really kind of feel like that's what we've done with Microsoft. Microsoft created this amazing thing. It started with MS-DOS, man. They created this amazing thing, and people have become so reliant on this amazing thing. And so they build these great products, and they got these great ideas behind these great products, but then they put so much stuff behind it, and they make it so complicated, and that Microsoft people don't even know how to do it, And it's just amazing to me how, but yet at the same time, we are so reliant on this thing that nobody knows how to completely get, and it's a mystery. There's mysteries within pricing. There's mysteries within licenses. There's mysteries in how do I do a simple. In the old days, I used to write a DBase program, and I would have some database structures to it, and I would just copy them from the C drive over to the D drive, or put it on a floppy disk and stick it in somebody else's computer and put it on their hard drive, and I was done. And it was a great, easy thing, using MS-DOS. But now we can't create a Dataverse table and put it over into another environment and have the data intact. It's so nobody knows how to do it. It's just amazing. It's just amazing.
The simple way is not the right way. The more complicated way is the right way, because the more obfuscated it is, the less obfuscated.
Is that
the more clouds and smoke we have, and nobody really understands it. Security by obfuscation.
Yeah, incidental empire.
Yeah, so like, I mean, a hacker, if your process is simple, like, oh yeah, I see he just moved something over to the drum, I'll just go in there and do that. But if you've got like weird sorcery going on, like to change some setting, okay, open up regedit, okay, now go in here and change this, now you need to reboot, now install this tool, and then go back into now make sure you back up the registry, and there's some security in that. I guess job. I didn't mean job security, but I guess it's sort of some
sort of a marketing security so that they can name their price and whatever. And it's amazing because they've got such amazing products. When you can get everything to line up right, it's just amazing. But just getting it to line up, it's just so crazy. And that somebody, I can't hardly read the thing. It says, this conversation makes me feel good about my imposter syndrome for not being able to remember how to configure everything on Azure. Look, saying that.
I'm trying to work there's 15. I'm trying to work down the comments, but you interject stuff and I can't get through, and then you just start naming off stuff at the bottom. But do you feel like you got out what you had? Because I don't want to interrupt your train of thought there, because I don't want you to forget.
I just want to say it's him being able to say that gives me great anxiety. I'm like, just configuring something on Azure. Are you crazy? That's so hard, and it doesn't need to be, right?
You're right. I'm not gonna poo-poo it too much. I'm a little bit of a Microsoft fanboy, but yeah, I wish sometimes things were a lot simpler.
I want to be. I want to be a Microsoft fanboy because I really think they've got amazing stuff. Like, I love this Power Apps and Power BI. Great stuff. But ask me to put it over on Ellie's environment, my data and everything. Can't do it. No. And there's not a lot of documentation to it. So,
well, it's sort of akin to rocket surgery, right? Nothing's ever simple.
Nothing's ever simple.
I would like to answer Ellie's question. Do you put everything in a solution to hand off? Yeah, if you use Dataverse, sure. It's always good to start with a solution, create environment variables. So yeah, you need to be trained on that. Then there's ALM, there's Azure pipelines, there's all kinds of things that you can do for deployment to help you out. Hopefully the guys over in IT, they've already been trained on that. Chances are they won't be, but hopefully they will. Okay. Jared's King, I love the honesty. Well, thank you. Patty says, thank you, Ellie. I was going to ask the same thing. Yeah, deployment is something I really don't like. Lots of love. Have a great weekend. Okay, so network admins is more DevOps, right? So DevOps, you've got developer and you got operations. So the people, you have to have a little bit of both. You got to be a little bit of a developer and a little bit of a network admin to understand a lot of this DevOps type of stuff. So with the advent of everything being cloud-based, we've got all these cloud services. You got Azure, you got Amazon Web Services. You almost have to be trained and certified, and there's so much to learn just to use these tools to run operations, in the cloud, because there's a lot going on there. I mean, you guys have seen me set up things within Azure, And there's kinds of firewall stuff. Does everybody know what a firewall is? And ports and incoming and outgoing ports. And do you know that? Well, it takes a special person to have a foot in both worlds to do that. I sort of see that a little bit of, and there are some developers that enjoy that type of stuff. There's some network admins that enjoy a little bit of the develop stuff. So I think it's like a special little niche or niche or whatever, however you pronounce that. So I guess Patty and Ellie are talking about something that's exciting here. Awesome. I love to see it. So she's going to share it. Very good. This conversation makes me feel good about my imposter syndrome. Yeah. For not being able to remember how to configure everything on Azure. Yeah. There's like so many things to know. If I go see my family doctor about something, I'll get referred to a surgeon or a specialist, So if the doctors who go through how much school to become a doctor and residency and everything, and they still don't know everything about something as simple as the human body, right? There's all kinds of specialties. The same thing with IT, of course. And now we're at the last comment here, Kurt. I just want to make sure that we're keeping up here. What makes a project harder to do than others? Technical side or customer? I'd like to hear your take on this, Kurt.
The answer is yes. The answer is both, because sometimes that technical, when it comes to programming, the programming side is never hard. The problem is always fun. It's always a challenge. It's always Saturday, but it's the delivery, what we were just talking about. Nowadays, to me, the deployment of the project is just, for me, it becomes, it's so it's not monotonous. It's just so, it's like I'm shooting a basketball at a moving hoop, and like you just can't zero in on anything. And one minute I think I got it, and then something changes and it's just all gone. And you don't know why. There's no good error messaging. There's not good. I don't know how to explain it. But then on the other side, the customer. Sometimes the customer is the funnest part of the whole thing, right? It's dealing with people and the relationships. It's just having a good time with it. I love talking to people, as you guys can tell. But then sometimes dealing with the customer is really hard, man. You've got to, in both of these sides, on both of these sides of the equation, you have to be very good at taking responsibility for yourself. You have to be very good at it. When you're dealing with customers, if you're late on projects, if you're not on time, if you're not as attuned to the customers you need to be, you need to take accountability for that with the customer. And also when it comes to the working on the technical side of the deployment of that, you need to say, okay, guys, I don't get it. Don't pretend like you do, and don't try to drop and then do your due diligence to try to learn. Go find the people to do it, to help you with it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Does that answer the question? I hope it does.
I think so. I'll give you my take on the technical side. If it seems like it's challenging, sometimes it makes it fun. We'll have a little bit of challenge. As Kurt will tell you very readily, is there's always at least some element in any project that will be new to you that you're gonna have to learn something or look something up.
Yep.
Right. So if it's a project, I would not take on a Power Pages project. I would not, unless it was super, super simple. And they said, they had plenty of time. But in that case, really what I would recommend to them is like, you don't want, my rates are too high and my level of variance is too low for a project like that. You would be better off finding an expert in that, and they'd be able to do it in one day. And it probably might take me all week, and I'd end up charging you for all my time, and it's not a win-win, So if it's too much, it seems like too much of a technical steep or a learning curve for you to get the skills to do that project. There's already, as Kurt just alluded to, in a project you think just looks super simple and you know exactly what to do. There's going to be something in there that you don't know to do. So there's already that. So you don't want to take on those. And the same thing for the customers. you want to interact with them several times on a big project. I mean, if it's a single screen, whatever, but even some of those single screen things that seem like that might end up being a huge project, and then you're stuck and you're just trying to get the thing done, and they're never satisfied. They want revision after revision. And even though you tell them, hey, this is exactly what we're going to do for this amount of money, they could still give you a bad review. They're not happy. You want to turn down the customers that seem difficult, and turn down the ones that seem a little technically hard for you.
Yep.
Yeah. So, yeah, Ellie's repeating some of the stuff that I was just saying there. Managed or unmanaged to choose when it comes to DevOps. I always do unmanaged, because if you make a solution package managed, you can't get in there and change it and debug. Now, when it goes to production, that's where, now I'm talking about my personal preferences. I am not an expert on this subject matter of deployments and packages and pipelines and all this AL and stuff. I'm not an expert in it. Okay. But I do know if I move something from dev over to test and it doesn't work in test, and it works fine in dev, well, I want to open up the project and see what's going on. If you make it managed, sort of compiled and locked down, and you can't open it up and look at it or change anything. So that's why I like to work with unmanaged, but there are a lot of upsides. That's why I like unmanaged, and there's upsides to managed. Like, let's say if you give a project to someone, you're selling software, you make it managed, so they can't just open it up and change it. They need you to make changes. Okay, so there's something to be said for managed. Moving implementation dates up, scope creep. Put in your contract, you charge for time, and yeah, you could do that. They may not be happy about that if you're trying to, and in Fiverr, there's really not any contracts. It's like Fiverr's the middleman. They hold the funds in escrow, and even when you finish it, sometimes it takes 2 weeks to get the funds. And if they want a contract, yeah, get in writing on what you guys agree on. I think that's a good thing to do, to sort of cover both sides. Amber says, find people like Darren and Kurt to help you with. That is upside to the accelerator program, guys. Not only do we teach you, we train you, we mentor you. It's an apprenticeship program, but also you go and take on your first freelance project. We'll actually help you with the project. And we'll actually coach you on, hey, where's your ERD diagram? Did you gather the requirements? Do you think it's better to create a solution and upload to the...
Hold on, Darren. I got something I wanted to say about that.
Okay.
If it's okay.
Sure.
So I also want to say that's the other good thing. You mentioned the accelerator program along with what me and you do when it comes to that. But much of this conversation is not anybody can know everything, right? So nobody knows everything about everything, right? So that's one of the beauties about accelerator program is we attract people from all sorts of walks of life that deal with expertise, and they bring something to the table, because everybody in the accelerator's got that passion to do this stuff. And so sometimes we'll be in there and some of these students will bring a project in and there's something that we haven't done. Either I haven't done it or you haven't done, or both. And some student in there is going to have something where they've done some experience with that, and they'll bring some of that to the table. So it's a network. It's really about having that network to be able to reach out to because you might be in that problem where you don't know, or that program that has a problem that you didn't know about. There you go. Now you've got this network that you can latch into and pull that information out and help you through it.
Absolutely. Have you ever gone through a difficult time in your life? You might ask, hey, what's your emotional support system like?
Yeah.
You take on new projects, you're doing something new you've never done before. What's your support structure look like? So
it's great to have that accelerator program as your back, because it's so available for at any moment and any time, middle of the night, more early morning, there's always a way for you to get unstuck in any moment, you know? Um,
Kurt
and
handles the night calls. I do the morning calls. But
well, wait, we've actually got people from the other side of the globe, though. We've got a lot of people from a lot
yeah,
of different countries. So our
yeah,
time zones are pretty much covered all the time, you know,
yeah. And we got several levels of support, different forms of support.
in different levels and forms of support, you know? Yeah.
But there's something to be said for you're doing something and your confidence level just isn't there yet, where you could say, let's say they're in a meeting with this new client and they say, hey, that's a great question. Let me get back to you on that. And most of the time, like, oh, okay. And then you could come back to me and Kurt and pose at one of the group calls and say, hey, I was in this and this happened. How should I have responded to that? You know?
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
Kurt and I probably have a combined decades of experience that would go back to the formation of Dirt, especially with Kurt. Kurt's got even more than me. But yeah, our combined experience and also your fellow accelerator students from different walks of life. And when people put their minds together, there was actually a test done at a place I was working at. There was like these questions you had to answer, and they did some with individuals. They would write down their answers. And they're like, okay, well, the second part, you guys are going to get in groups of 10. And like when you got into groups of 10 people were able to answer so many more because I may not know something, but two people on the team do, or vice versa. So people come together and comparing notes is a huge thing. It's more useful than you might think. So one says, do you think it's better to create a solution and upload to the store rather than doing custom development? Okay, yeah, if you're talking about the marketplace that Microsoft has, I actually love that idea. I haven't taken the time to do that yet, but that's actually the type of stuff that I prefer, is to build a system. But there's always tons of work in the custom development, because a lot of time canned software just doesn't fill individual business needs, and they need something built custom. Let's make sure we're on top of all the comments here. Hey, Kurt, I think we're caught up with the comments. How do you handle opportunity?
Right. So that's a big deal, right?
It is.
Opportunity and responsibility. Those are important things. When it comes to opportunity, you think about it, you always hear about the person complaining about, well, how come this guy got so many opportunities and he just blew every one of them, and I can't seem to get a chance at anything. And it's just not fair. It's just not fair. These opportunities, some people get lots of opportunities and I don't even hardly get an opportunity, and I guess I just want to say that life's just not fair. It's really not. And it's really not about how many opportunities you get. It's really about what you're going to do with that opportunity when you get it, because you might only get one opportunity. You might be lucky and get 15 opportunities, but you might only get one. And every time when you're looking at freelancing, you're looking at somebody as a potential client of yours, that's an opportunity. So you need to ask yourself, what am I going to do with this opportunity when I get it? Am I going to just blow it off? Am I going to take it for granted? Am I going to, whatever, because I know I've had a lot of opportunities in my life and I've just whatevered them. I've just taken it for granted. And I look back at that in my life and I say, wow, did I blow a bunch of opportunities? And so I just want to say to people that here right now, man, look, this is about what are you going to do today with this opportunity that you got right now in this moment, and that's the question you need to ask yourself. And that's about personal responsibility. So when you're dealing with clients, you're dealing with potential, like when you're freelancing and you've got these customers out here on Fiverr and you're not getting back with them fast enough or whatever, those are opportunities for you, man. And you need to ask yourself, what am I going to do with that opportunity? Also, when it comes to learning, you might have your teacher right in front of you. And are you going to blow them off or not? Are you going to wait for Fiverr to say that this is a great customer before you start engaging with them, because that customer might be the first person that ever come. It might be the first time they came into Fiverr. So Fiverr doesn't know that yet, but you might be working with the next person that comes up with the next great billionaire type thing. That might be a great opportunity for you, man. So don't blow off any opportunity, because you might not get another one. And when it comes to the learning, do the same thing. Your teacher might be right in front of you and you never even know it, and you had an opportunity to learn. So that's what I got to say about opportunity.
That's some good stuff, man. I'm glad you mentioned that. I mean, you started talking about opportunity, and I just put down opportunity, before we went live. So I'm so glad that you mentioned that. What you just said there, I mean, I'm going to have to admit,
people pay big money for this.
What you said was really profound.
Yeah, well, it's true too, because you always hear, that's just not fair. It's not fair. It's not fair. Life's not fair. It just isn't.
Yeah.
And everybody out here that's watching this probably can attest to that.
One example I had as you were talking, this so came to my mind, and things are so slow at the beginning with freelancing. You guys probably have heard this story if you follow a lot of my stuff, my channel, whatever. But it bears repeating, especially, if you haven't heard it, which is my first project. I did for $95, and it's my checklist inspection app. If you do a search for Darren Neese checklist inspection app on YouTube, you're gonna find it. I did that thing. It took me 2 weeks, nights and weekends, to finish that up. And I told him, because I wasn't getting a lot of people approaching me for jobs, and I'm like, listen, I want to use your project as a portfolio piece, and all I ask is that you give me a thorough review, whether it's good or bad. I knew it was going to be good because I was going to treat them right and under promise, over deliver. I was going to do everything I could, and that has come back to it's come back to me in many ways. I treated that little small opportunity a certain way, and it just has come back over and over again in so many ways. Still gives back to me.
That is a great example of what you did with opportunity when it comes your way. And Ellie said something earlier today that I thought was really profound, that I really wanted to talk about too, and talk about pricing in the beginning. But first, when we're on opportunity, I want to say something, because Emo up here, I don't know the whole name because I can't really see it very well. Emo says he's from Australia, or she. I don't know if that's they are from Australia, and it's 3 o'clock in the morning. Okay, it's 3 o'clock in the morning. Does Emo want this? Does Emo want this? Up at 3 o'clock in the morning watching this stuff. Emo wants this. That's the kind of person I want to work with right there. That's the kind of person I'm talking about. That is somebody who takes an opportunity and says, I'm gonna watch this thing, man, because I got an opportunity right here. 3 o'clock in the morning. Most people are sleeping. Nope, not Emo. Emo's up here watching this thing, getting good. You're gonna be great, Emo. You are gonna be great if you keep that attitude. And I really you're right along the lines with Ellie. Ellie's another one like that. And Patty and Amber, you guys are the ones. We got so many of them on here. Mark, you guys are the ones that you guys are great, because you guys want this, man. And I hope you talk to us about Accelerator, Emo, because you are perfect. That's the perfect person to work with, and I just wanted to say that that's great. So I can't remember where we were going, but I just had to jump in there on that.
Absolutely. You can't give, we can't impart to students desire, passion, dedication. I mean, I can show you how to gather requirements and stuff. I've had maybe friends or family, or somebody that knows somebody, and I sort of reach out. I'm like, listen, I can sort of give you tips for free. It's like, hey, watch this video, go do this. Maybe even give access to one of my courses and stuff, and they don't do anything with it.
Yeah.
Why? Well, first of all, people don't value many things that they get for free, but also they really didn't want it. they didn't wake up at 3. I remember, Kurt, when you're working at a place and you had a bunch of time off and you're like, finally I can spend some time on Power Apps. All the other people that you knew in that area that we were talking to, they weren't spending their vacation time doing Power Apps. They were off doing other stuff. So it comes down to priority. Some people say they want to learn Power. Some people say they want to be a app developer or a freelancer. But if they really wanted to do it, they would put in the time. They would, dare I say, sacrifice. There might be some sacrifices.
Yeah. There is. You have to do sacrifice, but if you love something the way I love this, there's no sacrifice. When you love something, it's not even called sacrifice, really, is it?
That's right.
But in the terms of, now when we're bringing this into the terms of freelancing and clients. And what do I always say about ability, Darren? What's the best ability?
Availability.
That's the best ability. You can be the best programmer in the world, but if you're not available to the clients, then you're not worth a darn, right? So we want to be available. Now, also, you cannot be that great of a programmer. In fact, the reason why I am Darren's elite employee is not because I'm great at programming or teaching or making videos. It's because I'm available. I'm available. Whenever Darren needs something done, I say, yes, I'm going to do it. Even if I'm pissed about doing it, I'm going to do it.
And because stick around. Some people don't stick around, man.
No, because you got to be available. You got to be consistent and you got to be available. Those are the big tricks in this whole thing, but there was something I wanted to say about what Ellie, because I went all that and I waxed down that direction to put a period there. But I really want to talk about what Ellie said early on. She made a comment and it was really important. She was talking about pricing, and she was talking about basically giving something away for free for a little bit to get things going. Okay. Or underpricing. We're just going to say underpricing. I'm not going to say it the way Ellie said it because I can't remember. And she said it better than me. So I'm sorry, Ellie, if I said it wrong, but it was really important. It's about underpricing yourself just for a little bit, because that's going to pay dividends in the long run. Now, having said that, and I want to talk about that in a minute, but I want to say there's a caveat to that. Sometimes we can be doing that to set ourselves up for overwhelming failure in the end, because what happens is we underprice ourselves. We're giving them that because we want to get in there. We want to get that niche. We're trying to develop that niche. But then all of a sudden we got that niche, and be careful what you ask for, because now that you're in there and you're in that niche, now they're coming to you. Now they're dependent on you. Now they're coming at you from every direction, and you don't have the bandwidth to handle it, or the resources to deal with it, and all of a sudden you're freaking out and you're saying, everybody wants a part of me and I don't have time for any of this stuff and blah, 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 blah. You set that up. You set that up because you made yourself an incidental empire. Okay. And it's good, but you got to be careful with this thing, and you got to be careful what you ask for in that. But having said that, I want to go down the other side of that. That's the bad side. Okay. But I want to go down the good side of that. If you can manage that and you're doing it for the right reasons. Now think about it. In the 90s, I used to do a lot of freelance work. And back then the prices were a lot different. Okay. Back then, writing, if you were a big software development firm, you charged $40 an hour. Okay. Darren's charging $250 an hour now. That's the pricing differences of the way it was back in the 90s versus today. But it was $40 an hour. And I thought to myself, as a freelancer I could be working for these marketing firms that are trying to write this program for Snuffy Smith, who is a grain elevator farmer. And he needs some work done. Snuffy Smith can't afford that. He can't afford $40 an hour back then, So he's never going to pay these big corporations to do this software, and he's just going to stay on his paper and pencil, right? But Kurt comes in and says, "Do I really need $40 an hour?" Or if you're or if you're an aspiring freelancer like Darren, but you're not at Darren's level yet, do I really need $250 an hour? Because there's a lot of companies that won't pay $250 an hour. Do I really need that? No. Do I really? Back then it was $40 an hour. So do I really need $40 an hour, Kurt? No, nope. So I would go up to Snuffy Smith, the grain elevator, and I'd say, I'll tell you what, Snuffy, I'll do it to you for $10 an hour. $10 an hour for a quarter of that. Well, Snuffy, he can afford that.
Well, now, back then, $10 was a lot of money.
That's what I'm saying. We're got to be in proportion here. Okay. So today, in today's world, that 250, maybe I'm going to do this for maybe $30 an hour in today's world. But back then it was $10 an hour. I hope you're understanding the correlation that I'm trying to make here. Yeah. So, but the point is Snuffy could afford that. So there was no work versus maybe I got to work, but I'm not going to make a lot of money. And maybe what I can do is I can be working my full-time job and then do this part-time. And I can, because in the farming industry, I go to the farming industry because I'm in Illinois, which is, in the middle of farms. I know a lot of farmers, and I know a lot of farmers, they don't always make a ton of money. So what they do is when their farmers not making a lot of money, they go out and have a full-time job. So they got their business, which is their farm, and then they got a full-time job that they go do. So that's what you can do with your freelancing. Your freelancing is your farm, and you do it part-time, and you got your full-time job. But then when you start making some good money, now you can start going ahead and giving up the full-time job and do this, right? But you also got to price yourself right. So maybe you can do it for don't be you can undercut these big corporations. You're by yourself. You can do it for $10 an hour, and still make good money. So you guys, I said all that to say, you asked the question, do I really need that much money? How much do I really need? And sometimes I want to say with this, sometimes you got a big project. They don't understand what a mess they are. We're in a project right now, Darren, where this guy's got this data all in one table, and he's got thousands of records in one table. It's all has to be moved. And I have to go in and I have to create these structures. I have to take that one data structure into like 15 different data structures. And I'm going to have to move all that data. And there's going to be a lot of programming involved in that. It's complicated programming to get that data moved from that and broke down into those 15 tables. We're not going to be able to, he's not going to be able to afford, he would spend his whole money getting that thing done. So what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to cut a little bit out of that. We're going to have to give him a little bit on that in the front end of this project so that he's going to see some beauty at the bottom end of this project. And he's going to actually have some money in his wallet still, and then that's going to end up being more good work for later. That's going to be, he's going to love that. And then his credit card is going to be open to us because he's going to trust us. You can get all your money on the front end and lose the whole war. If you just grab some of that money and not so much money in the beginning of this, you can actually win in the end.
Yeah. I call that sometimes, okay, Kurt, we're probably going to need to eat this, meaning like work for free.
Yeah.
Because they created a mess and we got to clean it up. But they don't realize the value that we're giving them.
Don't have a clue.
So hopefully later on we sort of recoup that in some way to go along with a lot of what you were saying there, Kurt. I did find it took me a few minutes to find. This was the order I did, not $95. I did for $99. It took me 2 weeks, nights and weekend. This is my very first one, and this is the review that I got. I had this up for a few minutes. If you want to read it, you can hit pause right now. But that's what I did. You have to have at least 1 or 3 orders there, or if you're going to expect more to sort of trickle in. So you might have to be really cheap at the beginning. I wouldn't recommend that you work for free, but actually tell them like, hey, I need to build a portfolio. And because of that, and I also told him, I'm like, hey, I'm going to use what I build for you as my, so, nothing can be like super secret or anything. Oh, he goes, oh, that's fine. As long as you take my logo out and stuff.
Yeah.
So I believe that's what I tell people, that people create a Fiverr account all day long. Well, I create a Fiverr account like you told me to, but nothing's coming in. So, and I usually throw that in like, listen, you have to be cheap at the beginning, at least for one project, and it will give you so many dividends. This thing it keeps coming back to me. I mean, the video is one of the more popular videos I have. I mean, it just goes on and on of how that's come back to bless me in some way,
Yep, it does. And I kind of feel like that's the way it is in all life, right? I mean, if you treat people right in the beginning of things, it comes back at you. And if you treat people bad in the beginning, it comes back at you too, you know, both directions.
So Ellie says, so at first you have to have a reasonable lighter price to get the recommendations. Yes. And what you want to do is you want to have a consultation that is either free. And if you cringe at that, think about how many free consultations you might get with lawyers. They almost always offer the first at least 30 minutes to talk to you for free. I mean, doctors don't do that, but what are your thoughts on that, Kurt? At least charge $5 for a consultation. I mean, this is an opportunity. How are you going to treat the opportunity? You know?
Yep. I mean, I think you said it pretty well. I can't really say anything different in it.
Yeah. So the live stream has gone on for a while, and I know we've got a few more points, but we're gonna the workshop is I feel is reasonably priced. If you guys want to sign up for that for next Friday, we're going to be going over anything and everything that we've discussed here, answer any questions. Yeah, how do you? I'm so glad you mentioned that, Kurt. How do you handle finances? Create a separate bank account and leave at least 30% in there for taxes, expenses, maybe 35% or close to 40. Get with a tax professional. Don't mess around with your taxes and the IRS. Make sure you're all on the up and up about that.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've talked about that. Accelerator students have a bonus where, you know, I've got a post for you guys that I put up here recently. Go take a look at that. There are several things that I'm going to be doing for you guys, for those that are interested in that, to sort of send some freelance work your way. And of course, the beauty of the Accelerator program, not only do we help you, you know, train you, but we're actually going to help you with projects as well. So I don't see any outstanding questions. Here's the last comment by email. You can automate the consultation with Power Apps questionnaire. Yeah, you haven't filled out a form. Absolutely. So Kurt, do you think that we did we covered this a lot of this pretty well here? Is there anything that you want to add, or you feel like you haven't had the opportunity to say?
No, I think that was. I think I probably said more than what I should have. I appreciate you guys letting me spew on and on and on. Sometimes some of these topics they strike a chord with me. You know, Amber he had a comment up here saying he heard that ability without availability is of no use. He said he heard that at his last soccer training session. You know, it's funny, Amber. I used to be a soccer coach, so I used to say that all the time when I was coaching. Yep. That's great.
Well, guys, out of all the stuff that we've covered today, really burning question should be, which one of the videos should I watch next? And YouTube thinks you're going to like this video next. Let's see if they're right. Or you can select this playlist, which I've selected for you based on the content you're currently watching. Guys, got to hurry. Click one of them. Otherwise, YouTube's going to autoplay some other video, which you probably don't want. Thanks.
Got the power, Darren? Who's got the power?